Welcome to Fusion Fantasies, where I turn the light novels I love into audiobooks free, copyright safe, and made for you to enjoy. No frills, just stories. Got a novel in mind? Drop your suggestions, and it might just become the next audiobook. Now, let's dive in. 81 Chapter 81. This earthquake must be above level 10, right? He Chuan had never seen such an exaggerated natural disaster. He could only try his best to stabilize his body and escape from the danger zone. Fortunately, there were no volcanoes nearby. Otherwise, an earthquake of this magnitude would definitely trigger an even more terrifying volcanic eruption. At that time, there would be nowhere to run even if he wanted to. The Azure Dragon Legion's encampment was also in a state of panic. Everyone was at a loss. Fortunately, they were in an open area, and the cracks did not spread to this side, so they escaped the disaster. The earthquake came suddenly and left quickly. In less than 10 seconds, the world regained its stability. However, He Chuan knew that there would be aftershocks, so he had to be careful at all times. The avalanche in the distance was still ongoing. Layers of snow had collapsed in various parts of the mountain range and were now connected into a single row. He Chuan frowned slightly and carried out his deduction habitually. It had been snowing heavily for a long time recently, and the mountain's peak was covered in thick snow. The place near the foot of the mountain would definitely become a mess. According to his deduction, such a natural disaster's appearance would significantly impact the strange beasts living there. Who knows, it might cause the beasts to escape together. At that time, it would definitely be a life and death test for Glory City, which was blocking the way. At that time, Lin Yu's idea of using resources obtained in a war to support the war could no longer be implemented. The only way was to decide the outcome with a single battle. Without the help of the magic cannons. Even though Glory City's defensive capabilities had greatly increased, and there was a troop of several thousand armament soldiers. However, to the massive beast tide, it was still insignificant. The appearance of these two vicious natural disasters made He Chuan lose the idea of going to Freedom City. It wasn't easy for Glory City to develop to its current state. If he lost it just like that, he would definitely receive a very substantial rebate. However, such a return would absolutely not allow him to obtain an S-rank score. When the time came, he would not even have the ability to fight against the Crown Prince, who controlled the resources of the world in the Imperial City. He Chuan immediately made a decision and rushed back to Glory City to take charge of the overall situation. It was just as he had expected. The city was now in a mess. There were broken walls everywhere. The houses that had been dilapidated for a long time had now collapsed and turned into ruins. Many people were injured, and their combat power was significantly reduced. Many of the supplies piled up in the warehouse had been destroyed as a result. Not only that, many strange beasts living in the mountains and forests had been disturbed by the earthquake and were running around. From time to time, they would attack the damaged city walls. Some of them could climb or jump and even rushed into the city, wantonly slaughtering the civilians who hadn't taken the Hanshi powder yet. The martial cultivators were running for their lives. They hadn't cultivated for long, so it was still difficult for them to kill the strange beasts. As a result, the number of casualties in the city continued to increase, and wails could be heard everywhere. Especially that 6-meter-tall tiger-type strange beast. Its fur was so thick that even a few spirit cultivators who had awakened innate abilities couldn't penetrate it, let alone those martial cultivators. The latter were only armed with black-scaled spirit weapons. The strange beast tore the battle line apart in just a short moment. Damn it! Is there no one who can teach this beast a lesson? It would be great if the city lord was here. He definitely has a way. Damn it, quickly stop it. This beast is heading towards where the children are staying. F***ck, I'm going all out. Charge! More than 10 martial cultivators gritted their teeth and charged forward. In the end, they were swatted apart by the strange beast with a single slap. One of them was the most miserable. He was directly pressed under the enormous solace of its feet. It was unknown how many bones had been shattered. Right at this moment, a flash of fire appeared. He Chuan descended from the sky. His palm was filled with incomparably violent power, directly slamming into the head of the strange beast. Immediately, the tiger-type strange beast whimpered, and its body went limp as it fell to the ground. The scorching energy had already crushed its brain. It was no longer possible for it to stand up and hurt others. He Chuan swept his gaze across the city. There were still quite a few small-sized strange beasts in the city, so he immediately gave the order. All spirit cultivators, lead a team of martial cultivators to seal the city gate and block the gap. The rest of you, follow me to kill those strange beasts that enter the city. Yes. Everyone's shouts shook the sky. Clearly, they had been inspired by the scene of He Chuan killing the enemy with that move. However, motivation was motivation, and ability was ability. These martial cultivators were all awakened ones. Without innate abilities, even small strange beasts were hard to deal with. As a result, all the strange beasts in the city were killed by He Chuan himself. The others could only play a delaying role. The situation outside the city was a little more serious. Even though there were a large number of awakened ones to deal with the onslaught, because they didn't have the ability to kill, the strange beasts accumulated more and more. The strength of these awakened ones was weaker than He Chuan had imagined. He didn't expect they couldn't even deal with a beast tide of this level. The gap between them wasn't just a little bit. They hadn't reached the scale of the beast tide yet, but it was already so difficult to deal with. Wouldn't they be wiped out instantly if they encountered a real beast horde? That wasn't possible. Right now was only the threat brought by the beginning of the disaster. Perhaps they would face a new round of challenges in another day or two. He Chuan stepped on the city wall and looked down at the group of strange beasts that were as crazy as zombies. His heart was a little heavy. He activated his innate ability, fire control. He immediately turned the vast spiritual energy stored in his body into a blazing rain of fire sprinkling down along the city wall. Most of the strange beasts that could still move now had fur, which could be lit on fire at any time. They died in the pain of being burned by the fire. Glory City was in a sea of fire in just a few minutes. The fire spread quickly and scared away the strange beasts that wanted to attack Glory City. Glory City also had time to breathe. However, this safety must be very short-lived. They had to do as much as possible during this time. He Chuan returned to the city lord's manor. Su Ke and Lin Cheng came one after another to report the loss of various supplies and personnel in the city. The casualties caused by the beast onslaught were not considered large. It was just that the militia captain who was in charge of setting up the traps had fallen into the crater due to the earthquake early on. Sharp spikes had pierced his chest and lungs. The current medical practices were not enough to treat such penetrating injuries. Even though he had already become a martial cultivator, he still couldn't hold on until He Chuan's return. He became the first person in Glory City's leadership to be sacrificed. Apart from that, there was good news. When the awakened were cutting up the flesh of strange beasts, they accidentally discovered a kind of crystal that existed in their bodies. The size varied. The common point was that these crystals contained extremely powerful energy. Someone tried it and unexpectedly found that an awakened one could actually absorb this thing. Moreover, the energy conversion rate and cultivation efficiency were extremely high. It was much faster than their usual speed of using the guiding technique to absorb the spiritual energy from the outside world. 82 Chapter 82. This should be something like a crystal. He Chuan had some impression of this thing. Back when he was studying in school, a particular class taught him about the basic resources of the various reincarnated planes. Crystals like this, which existed in the bodies of wild beasts, were usually the source of their power. They were used to maintain their body's strength or release special abilities. The strength of this world was not high. Even if they could produce crystals, they were considered the lowest level of energy resources. The quality would not be much better. The biggest drawback was that they could not absorb too much at once. It was unrealistic to rely on this to increase one's strength. He Chuan did not think much of it. Therefore, after the awakened ones had collected the crystals, he did not leave them for his own use. Instead, he generously gave them to Suke. After that, he asked Suke to record all the awakened's contributions on the battlefield and convert them into merit points. In the future, if everyone wanted to receive additional resources and crystals, they would have to rely on merit points to exchange for them. There were many ways to obtain merit points. Saving people, setting up traps, providing crucial military intelligence, attracting the strange beasts that were out on their own to surround and kill them, and so on were all included. If someone could kill the strange beasts alone, not only would they be rewarded with merit points, but the corpses of the exotic beasts would also belong to the person who killed them. 1,000 pounds of flesh and blood could be exchanged for a small-sized beast crystal. As soon as these words were said, all the awakened ones were stunned. I didn't expect the city lord to be so selfless. He even gave away such a precious crystal. This is a good treasure that can raise one's strength. It's much rarer than any rare treasures. It's too easy to get merit points, aren't we supposed to do these things? Yet, it's everyone's responsibility to protect Glory City. It's not the city lord's responsibility alone. What the city lord does is no different from giving it away for free. It's so that we can accept it with peace of mind. He clearly killed these strange beasts with his own hands. It has nothing to do with us, but we're the ones who took the best things instead. The city lord is truly worried sick for us. Damn it, with such a city lord, so what if I risk my life? Can the new Legion's 27th Squad brothers lend me some merit points? I want to exchange them for spirit crystals to break through my realm. If it works, I'll go and fight the strange beasts one-on-one. All the gains will be sent to the storehouse, and everyone will level up together. Brother, wait a moment. I can finish repairing the traps over there tonight. The merit points will be given to you when you get them. Mine is a little lacking, too. I'll go get them now. And me. Once He Chuan's new reward system was introduced, it immediately roused everyone's enthusiasm. They began to fight sincerely for their team. They worked even harder than before. Many of the teams in the new Legion imitated the methods of Unit 27 and gathered everyone's merit points to exchange for crystals. Through this method, they tried to break through to level 2. Only level 2 awakened ones had the ability to kill strange beasts. In the previous battle, the awakened ones had all experienced the feeling of helplessness when facing gigantic strange beasts. Seeing their comrades, civilians, children, and even their relatives die before their eyes, they couldn't do anything about it. They didn't want to experience this feeling a second time. They desperately wanted to increase their strength. Now, with He Chuan's seemingly standardized collection of resources, but in fact, his selfless dedication, they were able to increase their strength rapidly. That night, many people had already broken through to the level 2 awakened. After their strength had skyrocketed, they went out in groups to hunt down the strange beasts scattered in the forest. This kind of action directly changed Glory City's previous situation of being passively beaten. It could be said to be a milestone-level action. And as everyone cooperated more and more frequently, everyone's collective sense of honor was also revealed. Many teams began to compete in the number of strange beasts killed. Sigh. Whoever killed the most was awesome. Many people made a bet with each other. Can you kill that bear-type strange beast? You can kill it. Then I'll consider you awesome. I'll consider you the best. Yes, that's right. They didn't gamble on money or resources. It was a very simple bet of verbal approval. A man's happiness is that simple. Such a gentleman's bet, yet it made many people flock to it. No matter how strong the strange beast was, they all held back their indomitable spirit and charged forward. They were the ones who weren't afraid of death. This kind of situation made He Chuan a little confused. After asking Lin Cheng Only then did he know that the internal affairs of the new legion were special. Out of nowhere, there was a competition of which squad killed the most strange beasts. Later, they would be the ace squad. Everyone would have to call them big brothers were the rules. For this honor, a bunch of people hunted exotic beasts with loud roars. So much so that they couldn't hear the roars of the strange beasts in Glory City anymore. Not only that, but these people also did what they had said previously. All the strange beasts they killed were handed over. They didn't even want beast crystals. This also caused before that day reached midnight. The city lord's manor's resources didn't decrease but increased instead. The number of beast crystals even tripled. He Chuan was surprised but also somewhat gratified. At first, he had planned to hunt strange beasts to fill the gap. But he didn't expect that there was no need at all. Could this be considered a rebate as well? He Chuan wasn't sure. He felt that the possibility was very high. If that were the case, the merit points exchange reward system would become a perpetual motion machine that could trigger the rebate indefinitely. As long as someone made an exchange, it would be equivalent to He Chuan giving away his wealth. Then, after these people increased their strength, they would obtain more things and return them to him. Tisk. Invincible. In time, Glory City's material reserves would definitely reach a terrifying level. Perhaps raising an army of more than 100,000 awakened ones wouldn't even be a problem. However, these were all matters for the future. Now, they needed to deal with the potential threat brought by this natural disaster. For the time being, there was no way to make the magic cannons. The production cycle of this thing was definitely not short, and they were pressed for time at the moment, so they could only shelve it. The role of the new Legion's awakened ones was very significant. They could do more things in this aspect. If I can get my hands on the blacksmithing technique and equip every member of the new Legion with new equipment, I should be able to deal with those large-scale strange beasts, right? He Chuan calmed himself down, however. I don't have time to go to Freedom City, and it's impossible for blacksmiths to come from the outside world. This road is also impassable, and Glory City is still not easy to defend. What could he rely on? He couldn't return the profits. These things were all dead objects, so it was impossible for him to give them to a living person. Moreover, the randomness was too strong, so that he couldn't use them. As for the deduction system, he needed information to be able to make a directional deduction. How would he know where there was a blacksmith? Where was the forging technique? This didn't make sense either. Wait a minute. Suddenly, He Chuan had an idea. Who said I have to deduce the direction? 83 Chapter 83. Was there a limit to the system's deduction ability? It could be said that there was, but it could also be said that there wasn't. What was the limit of the system's deduction ability? It was nothing more than the lack of computational power in the brain, which would result in a tremendous amount of data requiring an extremely long time to be calculated before the answer could be obtained. He Chuan could enter the information that he knew and perform a directional deduction, but this did not mean that the deduction did not require more information. What did this mean? This meant that the deduction system itself was an existence that possessed any information in the world. In other words, as long as the computational power was sufficient. Not to mention deducing one thing. Even if it was deducing a person's future. A family's future. A city's future. Even the future of a continent, a world, was not a problem. Was he that one with He syndrome in his first life? Obviously, he was not. His strength was now close to level 3 of the awakened one. His physical fitness was thousands of times better than before. Before, he could not deduce anything, but now, he could get the answer in less than a second. He Chuan suddenly felt like he had found a new world. His mind was instantly clear. It was time to use a different method to use the deduction system. Although he could not be as great as deducing the future of the entire world, with the current information, he might be able to deduce a small part of it. He Chuan sat cross-legged. He calmed his mind and concentrated on the deduction. In an instant, He Chuan felt as if he was in a vacuum. Then, he felt weightlessness. With a jolt of his consciousness, he felt dizzy. His figure strangely appeared in a wilderness. Here, he saw many corpses of strange beasts and humans. It seemed that this was a battlefield. On the battlefield, only a few people were laboriously moving the corpses of their companions and throwing them into the pit for mass burial. During the process, these people didn't seem to see him at all. They didn't even look at him. The occasional conversation revealed a bit of information. Sigh, I wonder where the city lord and marshal are now. Let's hope they can escape from the beast-tide area. Don't think too much about it. Hurry up and clean up Xiaowu's and the others' corpses. There might be more strange beasts coming later. The smell of blood is too strong. Am I in a state of invisibility? He Chuan thought for a moment. I should be in the world of deduction. I'm just a spiritual body now. Just as He Chuan was thinking about this, a notification sounded in his mind. Start deduction. Please choose self-exploration or free deduction. Is there any difference? This was the first time He Chuan had spoken to the deduction system. It was full of novelty. Self-exploration, you can enter the deduction process and cast directional commands in the process of any event happening, changing the deduction trajectory. Free deduction, the direction of the world, there are countless possibilities every minute and every second. Here, the system can only create parallel space-time, solidify the information of the existing world, and provide the most likely one, but there are still errors possible. The development and outcome of every deductive world are related to your own interests. Please keep this in mind. When facing these possible futures, try to be thoughtful. Hiss. Creating a parallel world, leading the direction of changing the world. He Chuan took a deep breath. He was shocked. Why didn't he realize that the deductive system was so awesome before? Free deduction. He felt that it was better to be conservative for the first time. After all, he didn't know anything now. He just wanted to explore. Deducer, do you want to save at this deduction node? Save. He Chuan hesitated for a moment but eventually nodded. Save successful, please name it. 001 He Chuan chose the simplest method. After naming it, the deduction system began to operate. After a world-class supernatural disaster descended, various regions underwent abnormal changes. Your glory city welcomed a beast tide that was hard to come by in 10 years. In this crisis, you stood up and led tens of thousands of awakened to resist, fighting for your territory and future. Unfortunately, you failed. Glory City was destroyed, and the awakened army suffered heavy losses. Failed. He Chuan frowned slightly and couldn't help but look to the side. There was an awakened's corpse on the ground. There was a deep dent in his armor. It was not completely broken, but the lower abdomen that was not covered by the armor had been cut off by an unknown sharp claw. Only half of his body was left, and he died a miserable death. He Chuan noticed that the armor this person was wearing was not made of black scale essence. It was made of another material. Black iron refined gold? This was what happened. It seemed that he had solved this problem in this parallel world. However, the strength of the new awakened army had increased so much. Why did they still fail to defend Glory City? Just as you were feeling puzzled, an accident happened. As soon as the system's voice fell, a roar resounded through the sky and was heard from the nearby forest. A few awakened ones who were still dealing with the corpses in the field couldn't help but look nervous when they heard this voice. Oh no! Someone cried out in alarm. In the next moment, the thick and sturdy trees in the forest fell into pieces. Along with the sound of branches being snapped, a fiery red ape-like exotic beast rushed into the field. He Chuan relied on his body of consciousness to get closer and observe. Its eyes were blood red, and its pupils showed an unnatural state of convergence, as small as the tip of a needle. It had completely lost its rationality in its actions. After discovering the few awakened ones, it roared and rushed over, catching up to one of them at an extremely fast speed and trampling it under its feet. This awakened one was also wearing battle armor made of black iron and fine gold. Its extremely tough strength had helped it block this powerful blow. However, it was obvious that the aura of this ape-like strange beast had soared a few notches because of this. It seemed to have become even angrier. With a loud roar, it exerted strength with its legs once more. Crack! The armor could no longer withstand such pressure. It was directly crushed into mud along with the ribs and flesh of the awakened. He Chuan keenly saw that when it exerted strength, its eyes seemed to light up for a moment, as if there was some light emerging. This strength was too exaggerated. Even if it was an ape-type strange beast, it couldn't be so ridiculous. However, what happened next was even more exaggerated. The remaining 3 awakened ones in the field knew that they couldn't beat the strange beast, and their speed wasn't as fast as the strange beast, so they decided to scatter and escape. In the end, the ape-type strange beast immediately stopped its pursuit and turned to use its fists to roar and hammer its chest. Its body then lit up, as if something was brewing in its body. Then, with a swoosh, a few fireballs were spat out from its mouth. The powerful attack unexpectedly melted the 2 awakened ones who were only focused on running for their lives. Holy sh**t! Wasn't this the innate ability of the awakened ones? How could the strange beast use it as well? He Chuan was shocked. Just as he was about to find out what was going on, the world of deduction suddenly became blurry, as if it was going to fall apart at any moment. Warning! Warning! The main body lacks energy. Continuing the deduction will cause damage to consciousness. Suggested to stop immediately. 84 Chapter 84. Oh no! He Chuan did not have time to think about it. The discomfort from his body in reality can already be felt on his body in the deduction world, forcing him to stop this deduction. He returned to reality accompanied by a severe feeling of exhaustion, and another wave of intense dizziness hit him. Phew! He Chuan lay sprawled on the bed and relaxed his body to alleviate the side effects of the deduction. In the end, in just a few breaths, he fell into a deep sleep while he was reviewing all the details from the deduction world. By the time he regained consciousness, it was already noon the next day. Recalling all the things that happened yesterday, he could not help but sigh. Looks like my physical fitness isn't strong enough. I couldn't hold on for more than a few minutes while deducting. If I could hold on for a while longer, I might be able to find the reason why I couldn't hold off the beast tide. However, there were still some gains from the deduction this time. For example, letting him know that black iron refined gold couldn't change battle's outcome. Apart from that, they would find an even greater challenge from the strange beasts. Those strange beasts with elemental abilities were truly too terrifying. Even if He Chuan were to go up personally, he might not be able to defeat them easily. Looks like I can't put my energy into creating new equipment. I have to prioritize guarding against stronger strange beasts. The new army of awakened ones already had the means to continuously increase their strength. The only thing missing was an expert who could oversee the entire battlefield. As long as they helped them get rid of those strange beasts that they couldn't deal with, it wouldn't be impossible to guard against the beast tide. He Chuan was the perfect candidate. The cultivation speed of the tyrannical True Cultivation Manual was much faster than the guiding technique. With the knowledge he had learned in his previous life, he had rapid progress. Almost every day, he could make his strength increase in stages. As long as he had 2 more days, it wouldn't be a problem for him to break through to level 3. However, Glory City might not be able to enjoy 2 more days of peace. Time. I have to buy more time. He Chuan closed his eyes and felt carefully. The earth seemed to be wailing under the trampling of the beasts. It seemed that some of the mutated beasts that had escaped their homeland in the Gobi Desert due to the avalanche had already rushed to the border of Glory City. He didn't know how many of them there were. No scouts could bring him any specific information. He could only rely on the sharp senses of the awakened ones to judge all of this. Although the error was immense, this was the only method he could rely on. The beast tide was about to arrive. It wouldn't be later than in the afternoon. The beast tide that was more than 10 days ahead of schedule gave him almost no time to develop. It was said that plans could not keep up with changes. It now seemed that this was indeed the case. With his current strength, he could barely resist the beast tide. However, it was not completely hopeless. He Chuan was not discouraged because of this. Although the result of the deduction was the destruction of Glory City. But that was only one of the tendencies of the future. Now, as long as he did not continue the research of black iron refined gold to make equipment, it was very likely that he could change that outcome. He had to hurry up and cultivate. He Chuan took a deep breath and continued to read the contents of the tyrannical True Cultivation Manual. He was about to cultivate. However, someone knocked on the door. "Your Highness, something has happened." It was Su Kei's voice. He Chuan pushed open the door and looked at the heavy expression on Su Kei's face. With a thought, he asked. "Is the Azure Dragon Legion back?" Su Kei was startled. "Your Highness, how did you know?" "I guessed." He Chuan chuckled. "Bring me there." "Yes, Your Highness." Su Kei brought He Chuan to the west gate of Glory City. As soon as they stepped onto the city tower, they saw a large group of people kneeling outside the city. Lin Cheng was confronting the Azure Dragon Marshal with a sullen expression. "You still have the face to come and beg the city lord? Back then, when you instigated the entire army, did you think that we didn't know what you were thinking? Now that you're being chased by the beast tide, you want to advance and retreat together with Glory City. You really are shameless." Below, the Azure Dragon Marshal snorted coldly. "Lin Cheng, who are you? How dare you talk to me like that? How dare you offend your superiors? Do you know which military law you've violated?" At this moment, He Chuan and Su Kei walked to Lin Cheng's side one after the other. Lin Cheng hurriedly saluted, even ignoring the Azure Dragon Marshal. Although the Azure Dragon Marshal was very unhappy, he still saluted him. "The guilty marshal greets the city lord." He Chuan looked at him calmly. "You are no longer a marshal of Glory City. Don't you feel embarrassed to call yourself that?" The Azure Dragon Marshal knew that He Chuan would say this, so he explained the situation directly. "Your Highness, you should know that the Crown Prince currently sees you as a thorn in his flesh. What he fears the most is that you will rise again. One day, when you return to the capital, you will snatch back the position of heir to the throne. As early as a month ago, I received a secret letter. The Crown Prince asked me to use the power in my hands to infiltrate the higher UPS of the officials. When you arrive, when the beast tide arrives, think of a way to take away the resources and the main army. I'm just a border general. How would I dare to go against the Crown Prince? Betraying you, betraying Glory City, is also a helpless act." After finishing his words, many people present frowned. Lin Cheng and Lin Ye kept silent. This was a fight for the imperial power. They simply could not interrupt and did not dare to interrupt. Su Kei's gaze became unusually deep. It was as if he was analyzing the reliability of the Azure Dragon Marshal swords. A few seconds later, he moved closer to He Chuan and reminded him. "Your Highness, this person cannot be trusted. If the Crown Prince requests it, then he must have prepared a way out of Glory City. Why would he be forced to come to us by the beast tide?" He Chuan looked at him with appreciation. This chief of staff was quite skilled. However, after the Azure Dragon Marshal heard this, he still answered calmly. "To tell you the truth, I am now the Crown Prince's abandoned chess. In order to silence me, he accused the entire Azure Dragon Legion of being a rebel army. Now, we really no way out." The Azure Dragon Marshal's face was full of sincerity. "Your Highness, I know that I deserve to die for my sins and am willing to accept all punishment. However, the 20,000 soldiers of the Azure Dragon Legion are innocent. Please show mercy and give them a way out. Oh! Hearing this, He Chuan was immediately amused. This Azure Dragon Marshal was really not stupid. He even knew how to employ immoral blackmail. 85 Chapter 85. The Azure Dragon Marshal's words were very interesting. On the surface, it seemed like he was taking all the blame and asking He Chuan to forgive the others. But in reality, it was a disguised threat. Everyone knew that since He Chuan came to Glory City, he did most the things to care for the people and think for everyone. In Su Kei's eyes, this city lord was wise, strategic, far-sighted, and knew the big picture. In Lin Cheng's eyes, this city lord was generous, capable, and powerful. In the eyes of the people, this prince of the royal family was their savior, the light of hope to save them. When people looked at him from different angles, their final impression would be different. However, he never put on airs in a high position. His kindness and integrity were the only consensuses in everyone's hearts. The Azure Dragon Marshal was using this point to borrow the opinions of the people to force He Chuan to nod his head and agree to let them take refuge in the city. You are a good city lord. You can't just watch as the tens of thousands of soldiers of Glory City were swallowed up by the beast tide, right? Do you still want your character set up? If you do, let us enter the city. This move wasn't very brilliant. The Azure Dragon Marshal believed that most of the higher UPS of Glory City could see through it. In fact, they could even guess what he would do next. Plead for the Azure Dragon Legion and stop the city lord from punishing him. But what could he do even if they knew? What could the city lord do then? In order to prevent the morale of the army from being unstable, he had to put it on hold for now and let him continue to be the Azure Dragon commander. This was a dilemma between advance and retreat. It was a pure conspiracy. Even if they knew his plan, they still had to step on it. Glory City's defense was currently empty, and they lacked a workforce. No matter the reason, it was impossible for them to remain unmoved in the face of 20,000 reinforcements. Azure Dragon Marshal couldn't help but feel a little smug when he thought of this. He felt that the plan this time was flawless. Not only did he consider Glory City's city defense strength, but he also thoroughly analyzed He Chuan's character and used such a statement that he couldn't reject. But who would have thought? The scene of He Chuan frowning did not appear in his imagination. This youth still maintained his originally calm smile. In fact, there was even a hint of playfulness in the gaze he was looking at him with. What did this mean? The Azure Dragon Marshal could not understand. In the next moment, He Chuan cleared his doubts. The city lord waved his hand. Instantly, countless figures flew out from behind the city wall and landed on the city wall. They only stood there for a brief moment, but the murderous aura emanating from their bodies already made everyone feel an extremely terrifying pressure. This temperament could only be honed after a life-and-death battle. Moreover, it was linked to strength. If one was randomly picked, the entire Azure Dragon Legion wouldn't be able to find anyone who could contend against them. Not even the Azure Dragon Marshal himself. Awakened. He was dumbfounded. That's impossible. How could there be awakened in Glory City? Even if they're pseudo-awakened, there can be so many of them. Then I have to thank you. He Chuan smiled. If you hadn't gone to the Wuji dojo to stir up trouble, I wouldn't have gained so much. As He Chuan spoke, his voice paused, and his gaze suddenly became sharp. The Azure Dragon Legion, from the marshal to the soldiers, have committed many crimes in Glory City? If I let you in, not to mention that I won't agree, but the people in the city won't agree. The Azure Dragon Marshal's face suddenly became somewhat embarrassed. City Lord, don't blame me for not warning you. The beast tide is about to arrive. If you don't accept the Azure Dragon Legion, will you be able to defend Glory City? If 10,000 awakened ones can't defend the city, what's the use of having 20,000 ordinary soldiers? He Chuan was expressionless. If you want to live, answer my question honestly. The Marshal of the Azure Dragon Legion gritted his teeth. After thinking about it, he felt that his life was more important. In the end, he swallowed his anger. "All right, go ahead. How many methods did the Crown Prince use to kill me?" "I don't know. You better tell me the truth." He Chuan narrowed his eyes. The deductive system told him that the expression on the Azure Dragon Marshal's face was unnatural. There was a high chance that he was lying. "Then you have to promise me that the Azure Dragon Legion and I can enter the city to recuperate." The Azure Dragon Marshal blurted out. He Chuan snorted coldly. "You don't have the right to make demands on me, much less teach me how to do things. If you don't want to tell me, then just get lost. Don't be a hindrance here." The Azure Dragon Marshal couldn't help but fall silent. The sudden change had caught him by surprise. He didn't expect that the scheme he was so proud of would actually be so fragile. He didn't expect that this young lad, He Chuan, would actually be able to hold the power of speech with just a few words. Not only did he expose the loopholes in his scheme, he even easily controlled him. This meticulous observation and judgment were genuinely terrifying. Only then did Green Dragon Marshal realize what a terrifying opponent he was facing. In the blink of an eye, the table had been turned and he had to make a tough decision. Should he say it or not? Actually, whether he said it or not, it wouldn't cause any more trouble for him. The Crown Prince wouldn't take revenge on him at this time. But if he told him everything, wouldn't he be of no more use to He Chuan? Then how could he enter the city? But he didn't have any more choices. The Azure Dragon Marshal decided to take a gamble in the end. He bet that He Chuan was a kind person. He couldn't bear to see 20,000 people drowned in the beast tide and exposed to the wilderness. At that moment, he told him everything he knew. He Chuan listened carefully, using the deductive system to judge every word. After confirming what the other party said was true, he could not help but complain. "Your heart is truly black," the Azure Dragon Marshal urged at this time. "City Lord, can you let us into the city now?" Unexpectedly, He Chuan shook his head gently. The Azure Dragon Marshal was instantly furious. "*CK, I've already told you everything you want to know. Now you want to go back on your word?" Suke could not help but retort, "His Highness did not say that he would let you enter the city. Can you stop imagining things?" The Azure Dragon Marshal clenched his fists. His anger had already gone to his head. He had already forgotten about the beast tide and his life. His only thought was to attack the city. 10,000 awakened ones, right? I have 20,000 soldiers. Even if all of them die, I will still bite off a piece of your flesh. Soldiers! The Azure Dragon Marshal shouted, "Even if you die, you will still hold your heads up. Today, you are being bullied to such an extent. Can you bear it? Kill! Kill! Kill!" The battle cries shook the sky. This wave of morale-raising was very effective. Right at this moment, the cries of beasts rang out. The sounds here startled the approaching beasts. The members of the Azure Dragon Legion immediately became nervous. The soldiers at the back turned around one after another, looking at the dark forest in panic. He Chuan suddenly raised his hand. Majestic spiritual energy circled and condensed above his head, becoming denser and denser, so much so that it turned from transparent to a water-green gas with substance. In an instant, with a bang, it burned into a blazing red color again. The fire clouds burned in the sky above the city, covering the sky and outshining the sun. All of a sudden, everyone present was shocked. Green Dragon Marshal's eyes were filled with shock. How could this kid be so powerful? He Chuan stood in the air with an indifferent expression. "The beast tide is coming. Everyone, get ready to fight. Green Dragon Marshal, if you want to live, let your subordinates fight together. If you want to escape, go ahead." Green Dragon Marshal gritted his teeth. Damn it! The beast tide had already rushed up to his butt, how could he escape? 86 Chapter 86. No matter how unwilling the Azure Dragon Marshal was, he could only order all the soldiers to get into formation and maintain full vigilance in order to deal with the next beast tide. Soon, the sounds from the forest got closer and closer. After 5 heavy breaths, the first wave of the beast tide appeared before everyone's eyes. It was a group of well-built canine-type strange beasts, similar to hyenas in some ways. There were several hundred of them. Chuan narrowed his eyes and observed. It seemed that the beast tide that was affected by the natural disaster had also arrived in batches. The relatively fast low-level strange beasts were too close to the front, so they were the first to arrive here. In that case, it wouldn't be so difficult to deal with them. But this was only for the new army of the awakened ones. The Azure Dragon Legion, which was leaning against the city wall, was miserable beyond words. In an instant, a hole was torn open. Even as a low-level strange beast, the hyena's sharp claws, with the addition of powerful strength, could easily break the armor and shields of the soldiers of the Azure Dragon Legion. Those basic weapons, which were even inferior to the black-scaled element, had no deterrent force in front of them at all. Using the body of an ordinary person to resist the beast tide. And without the protection of the city walls, they would only become cannon fodder in this battle. If it weren't for a part of the spirit cultivators who had awakened their innate abilities to rush to the battlefield, the first wave of strange beasts might have been able to wipe out these 20,000 soldiers. The fire clouds above their heads kept raining down deadly flames, crazily harvesting the lives of the hyenas. Although Chuan was only a level 2 awakened, his performance was more dazzling than all the other spiritual cultivators combined. The tyrannical true cultivation manual was too powerful. In this world of beginner entry spiritual energy recovery, this cultivation technique blessed by the heavenly Dao was the best. In addition, Chuan's control and use of inner chi were very meticulous. If it was changed into spiritual energy, it would not be much different. Therefore, among the second level awakened, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was the strongest. Sir is so strong. Su Ke stood at the side and could only stare. He had also taken the Hanshi powder, but he was just an ordinary martial cultivator, which greatly disappointed him who wanted to become a spirit cultivator. Facing this kind of battlefield, he could only be a salted fish who knew how to cheer others. He didn't do anything. Lin Cheng was the same. As the higher UPS of the army, they could not go down and charge into battle. Otherwise, if anything happened to them, it would be an irreversible blow to their morale. On the other hand, military advisor Linya seemed to be blessed by the heavens. She stood out among the tens of thousands of people and became one of the spiritual cultivators. The innate ability was plant affinity. She could use spiritual energy to increase the growth rate of plants. At first, she was a little disappointed. She felt that this was a useless ability. However, Chuan told her very clearly that there were no trash abilities. There were only awakened ones who didn't know how to use their abilities. In his opinion, as long as one cultivated plant affinity to a certain level, they could control plants and let them fight for themselves. It was somewhat similar to a beast tamer. In the future, when he became a level 6 or 7 awakened, wouldn't it be amazing and interesting to directly scatter beans into soldiers and command a group of small plants to charge into battle? Only then did Linya's worry turn into joy. She could do one more thing every day and cultivate diligently. However, right now, she was unable to help. She could only sit in the center of the city and analyze the battle situation. On the side of the new army of the awakened ones, quite a number of martial cultivators rushed out of the city through the small gates, killing the enemies outside. They forcibly helped the Azure Dragon Legion, which was about to collapse, stabilize the situation. Under the dual efforts of the spirit cultivators controlling the battlefield and the martial cultivators killing the enemies, the first wave of the beast tide was cleaned up not long after, and they managed to defend the city safely. The Azure Dragon Marshal hurriedly took this opportunity to get people to count the casualties. Not long after, Chuan heard a terrifying number. 5,000. The Azure Dragon Marshal had lost a quarter of his men just to face less than 1,000 small-sized strange beasts. It was hard to imagine what would have happened if Glory City had no awakened ones now. So many people had died. The smell of blood would definitely stimulate more strange beasts to attack. Now, they had to clean up the battlefield as soon as possible and collect the beasts' meat and crystals. The Azure Dragon Marshal also made a request at this time. CO defense was fine, but they had to move into Glory City. Otherwise, the losses would be too great. When the second wave arrived, they would all be wiped out. He Chuan directly ignored them. He had originally wanted to take care of the Azure Dragon Legion. These people hadn't done anything good when they were in Glory City. Moreover, Azure Dragon Marshal had harmed him first. No matter what, he wouldn't let them off. Seeing He Chuan's attitude, Azure Dragon Marshal immediately understood that he had really come to the end of the road. If he wanted to survive, he had to rely on himself. At that moment, he didn't hesitate anymore. He directly gave the order to abandon the wounded. Everyone took off their blood-stained clothes and went around Glory City, intending to leave from the other side. This was the right choice. The smell of blood continued to attract the attention of the strange beasts, leaving Glory City's people with no time to care about anything else. They had no way of splitting up their troops to chase after them. You're really ruthless. You're even willing to give up on your own subordinates now. Lin Cheng clenched his fists. Abandoning a chariot to protect the commander was something that he absolutely couldn't do. Humph! Azure Dragon Marshal shouted across the air. Don't make sarcastic remarks here. If it weren't for you guys forcing me, I wouldn't have gone to this extent. If I can't stand it anymore, I can just leave them. Despicable scoundrel! Su Ke couldn't help but curse. The Azure Dragon Marshal still didn't forget to set a trap for them. If Glory City didn't take in these injured soldiers at this time, if word got out in the future, everyone in the world would definitely think that City Lord He Chuan was a cold-blooded and heartless person. If that happened, he would lose the hearts of the people, and he would never be able to become the heir to the throne. As he watched the Azure Dragon Legion gradually move further and further away, Lin Cheng couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Sir, what should we do? Should we chase after them? There's no need. I suddenly thought of a way to save Glory City. He Chuan only smiled slightly. Let the bait go further away. As he spoke, he raised his hands high. A rain of fire rained down from the sky. All the corpses and blood were turned into ashes under the high temperature and finally turned into a charred stench that even the strange beasts loathed. 87 Chapter 87. Outside the city, the wounded soldiers of the Azure Dragon Legion looked at the flames on the ground from afar, not daring to approach. He Chuan had given them sufficient time to react when he attacked. If they wanted to live, they had to leave the 100-meter radius of Glory City. Hearing the continuous sounds of strange beasts in the mountain forest, these people really had no choice but to flee in all directions. Seeing this scene, Lin Cheng sighed softly. Strange beasts are bloodthirsty. I'm afraid these people won't be able to run far. Su Ke looked at him. Marshal Lin, you're not going to start being sentimental again, are you? After all, they're all soldiers of the Empire. Although the Azure Dragon Marshal and I don't get along, but... Lin Cheng gradually came to a realization. Having a compassionate heart wasn't bad, but it wasn't necessarily a good thing in this chaotic world. Thus, he shook his head and said, Sigh, forget it. It's good as long as we can survive the beast tide. Su Ke thought for a moment and said, these scents disperse very quickly. They can only delay the arrival of the second wave of the beast tide. Your Highness, what should we do? Take the opportunity to kill the Azure Dragon Legion Marshal. He Chuan looked into the distance. Once he dies, the Azure Dragon Legion will become headless flies. When that time comes, the target of the beast tide will not be just us. Su Ke was startled. Your Highness, you want the entire Azure Dragon Legion to use their lives to delay time for us? Yes. He Chuan's gaze was firm. Choose 300 awakened new soldiers. I will personally pursue and kill them. Lin Cheng and Su Ke looked at each other in surprise. This was the first time they had seen He Chuan use such a ruthless method. It was very different from his usual gentle and refined appearance. It made them very uncomfortable. However, there was nothing that couldn't be done. The crimes that the Azure Dragon Marshal had committed in the past few years, both in the open and in the dark, were enough to make him die a few times. Very soon, the chasing troops were assembled. Each of them was the best among the second-level awakened of the new army. However, the Azure Dragon Legion still had more than 10,000 people. It was still a little challenging to assassinate Azure Dragon Marshal. In order to reduce casualties and avoid being discovered by the other party first, all of them changed into night clothes. They chased out first and waited until nighttime before attacking together. The speed of the awakened ones was far faster than ordinary people. Moreover, the Azure Dragon Legion was afraid of being scattered by the beast tide, so they didn't dare to split into small groups and chose to march in a group. This way, it was effortless to find them. He Chuan brought 300 awakened ones and used the foresight of the deductive system to avoid the increasingly dense area of exotic beasts. But the Azure Dragon Legion wasn't so lucky. There were too many of them. After setting up a defensive formation, every step they took would send a flock of birds flying. Many strange beasts were already watching them in the dark. In the evening, they launched a wave of attacks in tacit understanding. The battle cries shook the sky for a moment, so much so that even the strange beasts in the distance were attracted over. All the heavy shield 100-man regiments, go and block the strange beasts that are charging at us. The hatchet men, cooperate with us to kill them. Let's get rid of them first. Azure Dragon Marshal gave the order from the center of the battlefield. Archers, prepare the rockets. Burn down the forest on the west side. Don't let those strange beasts come over. A few troops moved quickly. Soon, the strange beasts that were surrounded by the heavy shield soldiers could no longer kill as fiercely as they had when they first entered the battlefield. Although the shields the Azure Dragon Legion provided couldn't block a few attacks from the strange beasts, they had the advantage in numbers. If one of them couldn't hold on any longer, their teammates would immediately replace them. While exhausting the exotic beast's stamina, there were also hatchet men attacking from the flanks. Not long after, the strange beasts actually became riddled with wounds under this kind of tactical system. However, it was still a little difficult to kill them truly. Looks like the Azure Dragon Legion's luck today is a little bad. Just as the battle situation was tense, He Chuan moved. He brought a few hundred awakened ones and turned into a sharp arrow, piercing straight into the Azure Dragon Legion's defense gap. In just a few seconds, they had rushed to the center of the battlefield and destroyed more than 100-man regiments in a row. They didn't even have time to warn the others. Just as the Azure Dragon Legion Marshal sensed that something was wrong, he turned his head and saw a figure shrouded in flames. The next moment, he lost consciousness. His head separated from his body, and fell to the ground with a bang. The adjutants around him were all dumbfounded. Before they could react, they saw the assailant quickly retreat and run out of the battlefield. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! There's an assassin! Sir, is dead! The Marshal is dead! Panicked shouts rang out one after another. It immediately caused the originally orderly battlefield to become chaotic. He Chuan secretly observed for a while. Not long after the news of Azure Dragon Marshal's death spread, deserters appeared. Moreover, the situation was getting worse and worse. In just a few minutes, the number of people present had been reduced by half. Apart from those who were entangled by the strange beasts, almost all of them had left this place. Many of them are injured. They should be able to attract the beast tide over. He Chuan achieved his goal. He did not stay in the wilderness any longer and immediately brought his subordinates back to Glory City. That night, the scouts sent news. A large group of beast hordes was going around Glory City. They were heading southeast from the forest at the side. That was the direction where the Azure Dragon Legion was fleeing. After hearing this news, everyone in Glory City smiled as if they had been relieved of a heavy burden. The city lord saved their lives again. 88 Chapter 88. Glory City could not withstand the storm. He Chuan had made a good plan this time, bringing Glory City a precious buffer time. The beast tide that was triggered more than 10 days earlier by the natural disaster had caught everyone by surprise. If they did not do something, Glory City would definitely fall into this disaster. However, this strategy could only be used once. No second Azure Dragon Legion could share the pressure for him again. If he wanted to avoid the outcome of Glory City's destruction in the deduction, increasing his strength was undoubtedly the most crucial step. Thus, in the next few days, He Chuan directly went into seclusion to cultivate. The tyrannical true cultivation manual was fully circulated, and the efficiency increased tremendously under the heavenly Tao's blessing. So much so that on the third day, He Chuan successfully broke through to the third stage awakened. It wasn't just him. The awakened ones in the city also began to practice the guiding technique diligently, all working hard to become stronger. Although the final result wasn't as abnormal as He Chuan breaking through to the third stage, many had made significant progress after absorbing the spiritual crystals. They believed that as long as they were given another half a month, there would be people who could advance to a higher realm. However, time did not wait for them. Glory City had not been peaceful these few days. A few strange beasts would still attack them on a daily basis. The number of attacks increased as time passed, making them extremely annoying. It was obvious that the Azure Dragon Legion, which had been used as bait, was about to be wiped out. It was estimated that the beast tide would pounce on them soon. At this moment, He Chuan slowly opened his eyes. He felt the abnormally abundant spiritual energy in his body, and his heart calmed down a little. Now, with his strength, he might be able to deal with the strange beasts that had appeared in the deduction. But it wasn't certain. After all, he hadn't actually met them before, and it was hard to say who was stronger or weaker. He had two ways to prove this conjecture. The first way was to go out of the city and try to find two strange beasts. This was the simplest and most straightforward way. The second way was to use the ability to deduce the future. This great deduction technique could help him find the most likely outcome. It could save a lot of time. But He Chuan thought it over carefully and decided to go out of the city. The energy required for the free deduction technique was too excessive. After the deduction, he might be unconscious for another 1 or 2 days. Moreover, the effect was minimal. The last deduction lasted only a few minutes. Now that he had broken through to the third stage, it would at most double the time. What was the use of this? The information he obtained was too little. He only knew the ending of the destruction of Glory City. To him, there was no other use other than increasing the pressure. He might as well forget about this ability and put it aside. When he cultivated to the 7th stage or the 8th stage of the awakened, or even the 9th stage, he could use it to deduce the world and obtain a higher score. Using it to save Glory City was an overkill. He Chuan felt he could do it without using the free deduction technique. Then, he found Su Ke and described the scene he saw in the deduction world. He wanted to see if the other party knew the exact location. Unfortunately, without a landmark as a reference, Su Ke did not even know the general direction. He Chuan had no choice but to go out and look for it himself. In his impression, that ape-like strange beast was especially fierce. So far, he had not encountered an existence more potent than it. As long as he could get rid of it, he could also prove his strength from the side. When Su Ke, Lin Cheng and the others heard that the city lord was going out, they were a little worried. After all, there were more and more strange beasts hiding outside the Glory City. One person's strength was limited. Now, not to mention finding high-level strange beasts, even getting out of the forest outside the city was a problem. Don't worry. I'm not stupid. Why would I take the risk of dying? As he spoke, He Chuan decisively showed them the power of a spirit cultivator. He stood on the city wall and simply spread out his 5 fingers. Instantly, spirit energy swept out like a gale, and as it circulated, it burned with a bang, turning into a massive fireball. Under the influence of He Chuan's outstanding fire control ability, countless flaming arrows were condensed and shot toward the strange beasts in the dense forest. For a time, the wails continued without end. None of the strange beasts could withstand this casual attack. Everyone was dumbfounded. The city lord had only been in closed-door cultivation for a few days. How did he become so fierce? Su Ke scratched his head in disbelief and asked in puzzlement, "Your Highness, have you broken through to the 5th stage awakened? How can it be that fast?" He Chuan chuckled, "It's only the 3rd stage. Didn't I teach you guys how to differentiate the stages before? The standard for a 3rd stage awakened is to kill a medium-sized strange beast that's 6 to 9 meters long one-on-one." Lin Cheng was stunned as well. "You're too outstanding. Not only did you kill more than one beast, but you're also a few hundred meters away. One day, when you're successful in your cultivation, you'll be able to do it too. I'll look for the strange beasts first. After you clean up those corpses, be on guard. If you encounter a beast tide, shout with your spiritual energy. I'll rush back when I hear you." With that, He Chuan tapped his right foot lightly and leaped into the sky with the help of the rebound force. Spiritual energy gushed out from his body, turning into a streak of blue light and shooting into the distant horizon. Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned again. Spirit cultivator. Were they really that handsome? 89 Chapter 89. In the forest, the cries of beasts were incessant. He Chuan flew over the seemingly endless forest, his speed increasing to the maximum. Unfortunately, even though he had roughly checked all the strange beasts within a radius of tens of miles around Glory City within a few minutes, the result was still nothing. Not to mention those strange beasts that could control the power of elements, he didn't even see one that was more than 10 meters long. After flying for a while more, He Chuan couldn't hold on any longer. He returned to the ground to recuperate. Although this search was very efficient, it consumed a lot of spiritual energy. In just a short while, nearly 30% of his spiritual energy had been consumed, which greatly affected his combat power. He had no choice. In order to avoid any unexpected situations, he could only use his tyrannical true cultivation manual to recover his condition. When the spiritual qi in his body was almost full, He Chuan resumed his search. In the end, he found the corpse of a strange beast not too far away. He walked up and saw the beast's body was covered with mottled weapon wounds. The fatal wound was the penetrating wound on its heart, and frost surrounded its fur. It seemed to be the work of a spirit cultivator who could control ice. He Chuan frowned slightly. With the beast tide flooding in, how could there still be awakened ones adventuring outside? It would have been fine if it had been under normal circumstances. Most of the strange beasts were defending their territory and wouldn't run around. No matter how loud the fight between you and the strange beasts was, it wouldn't cause other strange beasts to come and join in. But it was different now. The strange beasts had long gone into a frenzy. Unless you killed them instantly, the nearby strange beasts would definitely come and attack them in groups upon hearing the sound. Judging from the traces left at the scene, it was definitely not the former. There were quite a number of giant strange beasts running trails on the ground. It was evident that this awakened was in trouble. Should I go and take a look? He Chuan pondered for a while in his heart, but in the end, he decided to follow the tracks. There were a few footprints on the ground that were unusually large. It might be the target he was looking for. Judging from the unmelted frost, the battle should not be over for long. With his speed, it would be effortless for him to catch up with the beasts. He Chuan circulated his spiritual energy and rose into the air again. Not long after, he saw a large group of beasts gathering at the foot of a cliff. Taking a closer look, the scene was too horrible to look at. In the center, there was a beautiful girl who was covered in ice crystals. She was covered in blood, and there were a few wounds on her thighs and chest caused by being pierced by sharp teeth. It seemed that she had died from her serious injuries. However, the ice crystals were exceptionally tough. The beasts couldn't leave any deep marks even after chewing on them repeatedly, so her corpse could still be preserved for the time being. The strength of this kind of spiritual energy was probably close to the peak third stage awakened. Apart from that, there was also a large pile of mutilated corpses being devoured by dozens of small-sized strange beasts. All of them were beyond recognition, and none were spared. Judging from the weapons scattered on the side, this team of awakened ones should have more than 30 people. Even they had died here, so the strength of the strange beasts could be clearly seen. He Chuan then turned his gaze to the strange beasts around him. As expected, he saw a few existences with abnormally strong auras. There was actually that ape-type strange beast he had met in the deduction back then among them. "Let me see how powerful you are." He immediately made his move without saying a word. Flames lit up, and the high temperature instantly ignited the entire mountain forest. Raging flames raged along with it. Countless strange beasts died upon contact, and even the ice crystals wrapped around the young girl melted bit by bit under the terrifying temperature. In an instant, only a few strange beasts that could control elements were left. They roared at the sky in unison, using their respective abilities trying to knock He Chuan down from the sky. He Chuan was prepared for the battle. First, he used the flame barrier to protect his entire body. Then, he took out the demonic Buddhist monk knife he had never used before. The knife was shrouded in black qi. Just by holding it in his hand, he could feel the evil power retained within. He felt it would be a challenging battle for him, so he attacked with his strongest skill. In the end, the blade slashed down. The strong wind swept over. Not only did it disperse the attacks of those strange beasts, but the extended blade energy also easily cut through their bodies. What was going on? The unrivaled existence in the deductive world was as useless as a piece of paper in front of him? Am I too strong? He Chuan was greatly surprised. He lowered his head to look at the weapon in his hand. Or is this demonic knife too powerful? Roar! Below him, the ape-like strange beast with its arms and legs chopped off let out an indignant roar. He Chuan kept away the demonic knife and fought with it, but the result was still the same. All the strange beasts, including the giant ape, were killed in one move by him. They had no room to fight back at all. They were ridiculously weak. Could this be the reason for the destruction of Glory City? Could it be that he had guessed wrong? He Chuan felt that it wasn't that simple. He felt he had overlooked some details but couldn't figure out what they were at the moment. Forget it. Let's not dwell on this. He Chuan felt that the core issue was still his strength. If he was now a 9th stage awakened and had reached the peak of the world, would he still be worried about the beast tide? There was no need for that. He immediately burned all the corpses of the beasts and collected all the spirit crystals, preparing to bring them back to Glory City. After that, there was only the corpse of a young lady whose ice crystals mainly had melted. Wait a minute. She didn't seem to be dead yet. When He Chuan got closer, he realized that the young lady's body was still emitting spiritual energy fluctuations. The ice elemental energy was even healing the wound bit by bit. However, it seemed to be very slow. It seemed the girl had used a large amount of spiritual energy to resist the invasion caused by his fire ability in order to maintain the existence of the ice crystals. Otherwise, if he let her heal herself like this, she might still be able to survive. This made He Chuan feel a little embarrassed. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't have died if the beasts lost their patience and dispersed. 90 Chapter 90. In that case, I better make up for it. Out of guilt, He Chuan planned to bring the girl back to Glory City. On the way, he kept using spirit crystals to replenish her SPRI ritual energy, so it didn't worsen the situation. When he arrived at Glory City, the ice crystals had already recovered to their original thickness. Very good. Just as he had expected. This way, he wouldn't have to bear the psychological burden of harming a human life for nothing. Chuan heaved a sigh of relief. Although he had killed countless people, the ones he had killed were all bad people. He had a sense of justice and responsibility to back him up. He had a clear conscience. Facing such a situation suddenly, he felt a little pressured. When Su Ke, Lin Cheng and the others saw Chuan had returned so quickly, they were somewhat delighted. However, when they saw the beautiful girl he had brought with him, their gazes became strange again. Your Highness, why did you bring the princess of the neighboring country here? What? I'm not understand. Chuan put down the ice crystal casually. I met her on the way when looking for the strange beast. I almost killed her, so I brought her back to let her recuperate. Su Ke looked at the wounds on the girl's body and scratched his head. How could you do this to such a beautiful girl? She was already like this when I went there. Chuan explained, then said, no matter who she is, we'll talk about it after the beast tide is over. Now, find someone to bring her to my residence's guest room to settle her down. You'll go with me to the storehouse. Yes, sir. Although the girl's identity was exceptional, Chuan didn't pay much attention to her. He was more interested in the statistical report of the storehouse. After checking, he found that the current stock of resources was mostly beast meat and spirit crystals. It was increasing every day and couldn't be used up. If we don't use it, it'll be a bit of a waste. Chuan turned to look at Su Ke. Is there any way to contact the merchants of Freedom City now? It's very difficult. Su Ke frowned, there are too many strange beasts on the road. If we send too few people, it will be impossible to break through. If we send too many people, it will attract a group of beasts. Unless everyone can fly like your highness, otherwise, there is no way to spread the news. Then there was no other way. Chuan shook his head secretly. To fly, one must have very precise control over one's strength. And this was the benefit of the tyrannical true cultivation manual. No one else could learn it just because they wanted to. Unless they were strong or experienced enough. As for asking the awakened ones to give up the guiding technique and practice the tyrannical true cultivation manual. This thought has only just appeared when he rejected it. These people didn't even understand the guiding technique. How could they possibly learn the tyrannical true cultivation manual? It wasn't that Chuan looked down on these people. Geniuses were truly rare. There might not even be one in the entire Glory City. If it couldn't be mass-produced, the idea of delivering goods by air wouldn't be feasible. It was better to develop steadily. During the beast tide period, there wasn't much chance for them to spread their wealth. They could talk about it after they got through it. In any case, the city didn't lack resources for the time being and didn't lack that little bit of extra improvement. Chuan then sorted out the spirit crystals he had harvested from this trip and kept the few from the bodies of strange beasts with elemental energy. He brought them back to his mansion to cultivate in seclusion. He wanted to see what was different about these spirit crystals, so he immediately absorbed them. He held one in each hand. Immediately, boundless spiritual energy flowed into his arms through the meridians. In just a moment, his body felt full. Chuan was astonished. It can be absorbed and fused directly. That was strange. Didn't the spirit crystals have to be absorbed slowly? And they couldn't absorb too much at one time. Otherwise, the violent foreign spiritual energy would go out of control and wreak havoc inside his body. At that time, he would be injured at most, and at worst, he would die. Previously, there were already quite a number of awakened ones in the city who wanted to quickly increase their strength to verify this point. This caused everyone to be cautious when cultivating. But now, Could it be that the spiritual energy of this kind of high-grade spirit crystal is gentler? He Chuan couldn't figure out the specific reason. However, this was very good news for him. As long as the quantity was sufficient, advancing to level 4 or even level 5 awakened ones in a short period of time wasn't a problem. Looks like I'll have to leave the city frequently. In the following days, He Chuan's daily tasks were very dull. He left the city during the day to look for strange beasts, and returned to the city at night to cultivate. During this period, the beast tide also attacked the city once. However, the pressure was very normal. Currently, the number of awakened ones in Glory City has already exceeded 20,000. Most of them had cultivated to level 2. Their strength was very secure. They could still fight back and forth against medium-sized strange beasts in groups of 3 or 5. Defending the city wasn't a problem at all. However, there were still casualties. Although martial arts cultivators walked the path of strengthening their bodies and their wounds recovered quickly, they couldn't resist fighting and guarding for resources every day. If there were too many injuries, they couldn't hold on. The number of casualties increased. In the blink of an eye, it had become a problem that He Chuan couldn't ignore. There were not enough medicinal herbs in the city. It's really like a house that leaks when it rains. He Chuan had long expected that the beast tide would bring many problems, but he did not expect it to come so quickly. The roads between the cities were not open, making it impossible to do business. Where would he get the medicinal herbs that 20,000 people needed? He once again felt the deep malice of the reincarnated world towards the reincarnators. No wonder it was said the higher the difficulty of the world, the harder it was to obtain a high score. He was still in the initial stage of reincarnation, yet he was unable to deal with such a difficult situation even with deduction system and the rebate as a buff. He could completely imagine how desperate other people would be in such a situation. What should he do? He Chuan leaned back in his chair, his index finger slowly tapping on the table surface, continuously deducing in his mind. Suddenly, an idea flashed through his mind, and he thought of something. Medicinal cuisine. Medicinal ingredients might not be the only ones with medicinal value. Food could also be used. There were so many strange beast meat in the storehouse, and their attributes differed. Why couldn't he make use of them? At that moment, He Chuan directly devoted his entire body and mind to researching medicinal cuisine. Beast meat number 1 has a bitter and sour taste, has a cold nature, and eating them too much may cause diarrhea. Beast meat number 2 has a spicy taste, has a hot nature, and eating too much of it has the effect of strengthening the meridians. Beast meat number 3. Very good. He could analyze it. What he needed to do next was to mix the unique characteristics of the strange beast meat of various attributes through a unique cooking method to achieve a better effect. What He Chuan didn't expect was that his way of thinking was actually incredibly correct, to the point that he had found a way that afternoon. When he sent his subordinates to the military camp with a large pot of soup made from all kinds of strange beast meat, and supplemented by a small number of herbs and crystals. Many people looked at him in surprise. What is wrong with the city lord today? Why is he in such a good mood? Is he cooking for them personally? 91 Chapter 91. The meat of strange beasts was still too unfamiliar to them. After all, this world of the recovery of spiritual essence was still in its initial stage of development. For more than 10 years, the awakened ones had not even figured out the cultivation method, and their overall strength was still at the middle and low level. It was already very good that they could defend this small area of the human race. They simply did not have the ability to explore other things. Not to mention this group of newly awakened ones in front of them. All the knowledge was taught by He Chuan, the little newbie. The concept of medicinal cuisine directly impacted their poor sea of knowledge. When He Chuan explained the effects of medicinal cuisine to them. Although there was the word medicinal in the name of this thing, its effects weren't as simple as treating illnesses and injuries. Tempering the body. Consolidating the foundation. Relaxing and expanding the meridians. As long as it was related to cultivation, it included everything. The only thing that needed to be done was to modify the cooking materials, combining different strange beast meat together, using a special cooking method to deal with it. Everyone was extremely surprised. Strange beast meat could also increase one's strength, becoming stronger just by eating? The city lord isn't joking with us, right? Although He Chuan's prestige in Glory City was increasing day by day and had already reached a point where no one could compare to him. But this kind of unheard of effect still made many people suspicious. But when they saw with their own eyes that each and every one of the martial cultivators whose wounds were more than 10 centimeters long recovered within a short few days after taking the medicinal cuisine, leaving only a small scar, this kind of doubt was completely gone. For a moment, everyone was discussing this. The city lord is too amazing, right? He has only been in Glory City for a short period of time. Not only did he tidy up the internal affairs of the city, he even trained all of us to become awakened ones. Within a few days, he even developed a medicinal cuisine. Why do I feel that the things he did, if it were me, I might not even be able to do it in 10 years? That's not nonsense. His Highness is so talented. How can you and I compare? I really don't understand. His Highness also only had one head and 2 hands. How can he think of all these? Geniuses are always misunderstood by the world. If His Highness is as bright as the sun and moon, then we are not even considered grass. We are not even on the same level. How can we think of it? You're right. Most people in the city agreed with this statement. They gradually realized the gap between themselves and geniuses. However, this feeling did not make them depressed. His Highness was helping them. They were not enemies. The more powerful His Highness was, the more powerful Glory City would be. Driven by this thought, their belief in defending Glory City became firmer and firmer. It was also because of this that He Chuan unexpectedly received a notification from the reincarnation seal. The character settings has been slightly reversed. Has stunning talent of controlling the hearts of the people in a city. The number of followers has exceeded to 99%. The life achievements of the first-generation genius and controlling a region have been unlocked. The final rating has been increased significantly. Finally, there was a wave of relatively substantial gains. However, He Chuan was not satisfied with this. He wanted to speed up the process and try to break through himself in this reincarnation, and completely control the application of the great deduction technique. And the realm and strength were the most crucial part. After dealing with the aftermath of the wounded in the city, and handing all the medicinal cuisine recipes to Lin Cheng and Su Ke for safekeeping, he once again went into seclusion. Gradually, the number of beast tides increased day by day. From a few hundred to thousands of medium-sized and small-sized beasts to attack. From the back, tens of thousands of medium-sized beasts attacked the city at the same time. The scene of 10,000 beasts attacking the city was magnificent. The martial arts cultivators used their own flesh and blood to defend the city, and people died in the chaotic battle every second. The beasts were stimulated by the smell of blood and became even more frantic. Occasionally, there were a few large-scale beasts with special abilities that swept across the battlefield, bringing tremendous pressure to the awakened ones who were defending. Such existences were difficult to deal with even for the few spirit cultivators in the new army. Fortunately, He Chuan wasn't in the closed-door cultivation and could help at any time. Otherwise, Glory City would have been destroyed in the face of such a threat. Still a little weak. He Chuan wasn't too satisfied. With the double acceleration of the crystal and the medicinal diet, the strength of the newly awakened legion still couldn't increase quickly. Almost half a month had passed. Not even a level 3 awakened appeared. It was indeed a little ridiculous. He didn't know whether it was because it was more difficult to break through in the high-dimensional world or because these people were too lacking in talent. However, after thinking about it carefully, there was no way to be too harsh on them. This year was different from the past. The difficulty of the beast tide this time could be said to be unprecedented. The natural disaster had driven all the strange beasts in the snow mountain range over. Even if they had developed for more than 10 years, the Freedom City, which was known as an iron wall, might not be able to withstand this crisis. Not to mention that their Glory City, which had already declined and had just developed not long ago, was already in decline. If it's a group battle, the magic cannon should be very useful. He Chuan suddenly remembered the 3 strategies Linya had set up. However, the magic cannon had been aborted because of the beast tide, so it couldn't be produced. However, it was different now. He was already a level 3 awakened. He could easily fly very far. He could go wherever he wanted. As long as he brought a few precious resources, he could go to other cities to exchange for the blueprint. The closest one was Freedom City. It just so happened that He Chuan wanted to meet the dojo master of the Wuji dojo and talk about training issues. After Lin Cheng and the others learned about it, they didn't have any objections. They now had full confidence in He Chuan's strength. They weren't afraid of him encountering any dangers if he went out. On the contrary, what they had to worry about was whether or not Glory City could be defended when He Chuan left. Linya stepped forward at the right time and started to talk about a detail. The beast tide wasn't endless. After every wave of the beast tide, there would be a period of buffer time. As long as they waited for the next wave of the beast tide to end and sent out scouts to investigate, once they encountered a large number of strange beasts and used the smell of blood to lure them to other places, they should be able to ensure a few days of peace in Glory City. This suggestion was accepted by He Chuan. Thus, after waiting for 2 days, He Chuan directly took action and annihilated a wave of over 10,000 medium-sized strange beasts. Flames blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Spirit energy turbulence swept through the entire area. Under his unparalleled strength, there was no strange beast that could resist at all. The people in Glory City were all stunned. Even though it wasn't the first time they had seen He Chuan take action. But every time they saw such a scene, they would still be deeply shocked. Too strong. So strong that it was exaggerated. They even felt that if the city lord were to compete with them, he would be able to destroy the entire Glory City with the same casual move. After that, He Chuan packed up his luggage. He brought all the high-grade spirit crystals with him. Just as he was about to leave, he heard the city lord Manners maid rushing over to report that the girl who had been frozen in the ice had awoken. He thought about it and decided to turn back to take a look. He planned to ask the girl if she wanted to stay in Glory City for a few days. Not to mention anything else, he could feel much more at ease with such a third-stage spiritual cultivator guarding the city. In the end, when He Chuan saw her, the girl's remarks were astonishing. The first sentence stunned him. The 9th princess of the Su Kingdom, Su Wan, greets husband. 92 Chapter 92. This girl called Su Wan had already changed into a light-colored long dress. She was extremely beautiful, and her temperament was gentle and pure. She was like a lotus flower that was untainted by mud. Coupled with the sickly pallor on her face, one could not help but want to take good care of her. Such a beautiful woman introduced herself in such a gentle voice and even called him husband. Most men would not be able to withstand it. But what kind of storm had He Chuan not seen before? He just felt that it was a little strange and asked bluntly, "Miss, you have mistaken me for someone else, right?" Su Wan shook her head gently. "I heard from others that it was you, this gentleman, who saved me. As the old saying goes, a life-saving grace should be repaid with one's body. Wan Er has no way to repay it. She is willing to serve young master by his side in the future, accompanying him until the black hair turn white." These words sounded reasonable, but the tone was not right. It was light and emotionless. It was obvious that it was done on purpose. As expected of a princess. Her words are quite artistic. He Chuan chuckled. He had already seen through the other party's thoughts. He said, "I don't need you to repay me with your body, nor do I need you to repay me. I just need you to make a deal with me. Suwan's eyes were as clear as water. Young master, please speak. Help me defend the city for a few days. After the beast tide passes, I'll send you back to Su country. How about it? Hearing this, a hint of surprise appeared on Suwan's face. That's it. Of course. He Chuan glanced at her, what else if not this? Suwan was silent. Although she had just woken up, she was not completely unaware of the time she had been frozen. From the beginning when He Chuan appeared on the cliff, he displayed his might and destroyed the beast tide. Then, he hugged her and sized her up. She knew everything when he brought her back to the mansion in the city. Suwan originally thought that the young man in front of her had taken a fancy to her looks, so he sent someone to take good care of her. He even spent a big amount of rare spirit crystals to nourish her lost spirit energy. Since she was in a foreign country, a strong dragon could not suppress a local snake, so she took the initiative to cater to him on the surface. She was prepared to take the opportunity to escape when the time was right. In the end, this youth had let her go just like this? To be honest, she was somewhat unable to fathom He Chuan's thoughts. She did not know if this youth was playing hard to get, or if he was sincere. He Chuan's expression was natural, and he knew what she was thinking. Don't worry, I have no feelings for you. No matter what, I was once a crown prince. If I want to get you, there's no need for such a trick. Suwan was stunned. Crown prince? You are? He Chuan. Yes. Hearing the affirmative answer, Suwan's heart was finally relieved. She had long heard that there was a crown prince called He Chuan in the Wu kingdom. He was wise, kind, and loved by the people. But how did he end up guarding such a small border town? Out of curiosity, she asked. He Chuan answered simply. When she learned that He Chuan had been demoted, Suwan let out a soft sigh. Her expression was complicated, and no one knew what she was thinking. How did you come to the Wu kingdom? And you were surrounded by so many beasts? He Chuan asked. I went to get betrothed. It was just that I happened to run into a beast tide riot. In order to avoid the beast tide, we got lost in the forest. We ran for a long time but couldn't find the main road. Betrothed? He Chuan couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. With the Wu kingdom? No. Suwan was a little depressed. The Su kingdom was fighting with the enemy kingdom. A natural disaster suddenly occurred, which led to 800,000 soldiers being trapped in the valley. The enemy kingdom took the opportunity to kill them. The main forces of the Su kingdom were exhausted, so they could only choose to cut off their land and make peace to avoid the war. At this point, she smiled self-deprecatingly, who would be willing to be the sacrifice of politics? But among my emperor father's 17 daughters, my concubine mother died a long time ago, and I'm the only one who has no maternal family to protect me. So what if I'm unwilling? He Chuan understood now. It seemed that the impact of this natural disaster was very great. Perhaps it would change the world's structure to a certain extent. Recalling what happened to Zhang Wenyu, he felt that he had to be on guard. He turned his gaze and looked at the girl in front of him again. In that case, are you unable to return to the Su kingdom? Yes. Suwan buried her head and 2 clear tears fell at her feet. She felt indescribably sad. If you don't have any ideas and don't have anywhere to go, for the time being, you can stay in Glory City for a while. You can leave whenever you want, and Freedom City isn't far from here. He Chuan's gaze was deep. He had a bold idea in his heart. If you feel indignant and want to take revenge on your emperor father and Su country, I can help you. This time, He Chuan's words were even more shocking, directly stunned Suwan. Do you know what you're talking about? There was a look of disbelief on her face, as if she had never expected He Chuan to say such a thing. Of course, I know. Why? You don't believe me? He Chuan raised one hand, and the flame rose immediately. The terrifying high temperature swept through the entire room, and many wooden things emitted a burning smell. He looked down at Suwan and said word by word, "Maybe one day, I will do the same thing. In this world, the strong prey on the weak. If you want to control your own future, you have to control the future of others first." Suwan's heart was a little flustered, but, no matter what, that's my emperor father. I didn't ask you to kill him. He Chuan smiled faintly. There are many ways to subvert the regime, and there are many ways to protect yourself. However, it depends on whether you want to live on your knees or not. Suwan bit her red lips. I will think about it for a while more. You're free to do so. He Chuan walked out of the room. I want to make a trip to the Freedom City. It's okay as long as you can make a choice before I return. Suwan did not say anything. Oh, that's right. Before he left, He Chuan turned around and threw the tyrannical true cultivation manual to her. It is not enough to help me defend Glory City with your current level. You need to improve yourself. Suwan took it and watched He Chuan leave in confusion. Then, she flipped to the first page. The contents made her eyes widen. How could there be such a perfect cultivation technique? 93 Chapter 93. He Chuan left Glory City without bumping into anyone else. According to his plan, Suwan should be able to comprehend the profound mysteries of the tyrannical true cultivation manual soon after she obtained it. After all, a person like her who could break through to level 3 of the Awakened One at such a young age must be quite talented. She would be entrusted with the responsibility of protecting Glory City for the time being. As for whether the other party would secretly take away the tyrannical true cultivation manual and spread it in Sioux country, He Chuan did not have such concerns at all. Anyway, with the rebate buff, all losses would bring him even greater gains. You want to run away with it? I would be more than happy to. However, after such a short encounter, He Chuan felt that Suwan was not such a person. He could see that this girl was very opinionated. She was meticulous and knew when to advance and retreat. She should be able to imagine that the best outcome of bringing the tyrannical true cultivation manual back to Sioux country would only be to get rid of the betrothal. However, she will still live under the control of the imperial power. If such a thing happened again one day, she would still become a political victim without any background. Smart people knew how to change. Now that the opportunity was right in front of them, who would ignore it? He Chuan smiled confidently. He had revealed his trump card in front of Suwan to convince her that he had the ability. As long as Suwan agreed, he would support her and step by step reach the peak of Sioux State's power. At that time, he would be in control of the resources in her hands. By then, it would be much more convenient for him to do anything. Especially the rebellion. With the help of other countries' forces, the success rate would be much higher. To be honest, He Chuan did not want to waste his energy on this aspect. However, the crown prince in the imperial court who always wanted him dead was really annoying. If he did not get the words out of the Azure Dragon Marshal's mouth, he did not know that this big brother would actually set up several schemes to frame him before instigating the Azure Dragon Legion to leave Glory City. The most vicious one was to have the Azure Dragon Marshal treat him to a meal under the guise of building a relationship with him, and then secretly put aphrodisiacs in the wine. This was to let his bestiality flare up and have sex with the beautiful woman arranged later. After the dead of night, the Azure Dragon Marshal would send people to kill the woman and frame him. In this way, although he, the 18th prince, was not sentenced to death because of his noble status, it was inevitable that he would have to bear the blame. The people will not tolerate him. The military camp will look down on him. He will lose all prestige and become a loner. At that time, no matter how capable he was, he would not be able to lead Glory City to prosperity, let alone resist the beast tide. However, for some unknown reason, this method was abandoned by the crown prince and he chose another method. Even so, He Chuan still held a grudge against him. You've given me so many gifts. Don't even think about becoming the crown prince anymore. He Chuan narrowed his eyes and flew up into the sky. It was snowing heavily in the mountains again, and the cries of beasts were incessant. Before he had gone far, he could see a few high-level strange beasts wandering around. It was estimated that they would become part of the siege soon. The beast horde charging at them was getting stronger and stronger. Along the way, they saw no less than 100 large-scale strange beasts. Compared to the previous beast tide, the number had increased by more than 3 times. He didn't act rashly. If he burned them all, it might cause the beast tide to become restless. If the beast time attacked earlier than expected, it might not be worth it. Thus, he ran all the way and soon arrived above Freedom City. At first glance, He Chuan only had one impression in his mind. Big. Just the size of Freedom City was enough to crush Glory City. Moreover, the city walls were filled with heavy cannons and arrow towers. Even the city walls were made of unknown black metal. It looked like a steel city. This city's defense was more than 10 times stronger than Glory City. The battle cries from below shook the sky. Unfortunately, they encountered a beast tide. The abilities of countless awakened ones interweaved with the radiance of the cannonballs, forming an inviolable line of defense. Medium and small-sized strange beasts would die upon contact. Only large-sized strange beasts could withstand the torrent of energy and charge into an area 10 meters away from the city wall with great difficulty. They're a little fierce. They're all spirit cultivators. He Chuan didn't show his face in the air. He silently observed the strength of the city defense of Freedom City. Most of them were 3rd stage awakened, accounting for about 7/10 of the total. The rest were mostly 2nd level awakened. Only a very small number of them had the strength of a 4th stage. They were the core of the stabilizing battle line. Once a super large strange beast with special abilities broke through the defense line, they would immediately make a move. However, what made He Chuan more puzzled was that these special strange beasts, which he had killed in an instant, were actually fighting back and forth with these 4th stage spirit cultivators. Was this a joke? The quality of the spirit cultivators in Freedom City was so low? With the thought, He Chuan stealthily stuck to the back of a flying strange beast. When the spirit cultivator below launched an attack, under the cover of the light, the flames lit up in an instant, enveloping it and the strange beast at the same time. The people below only saw a black shadow that looked like a shooting star falling straight into the city. Boom! A private house was destroyed. A few spiritual cultivators who had hurried over gathered their spirit energy in their hands at the same time, preparing to strike again. In the end, they saw a youth stand up from the ruins. With one hand, he extinguished the flames on his body while stepping on the charred corpse of the strange beast, muttering something. "How dare you attack me? Do you not want to live anymore?" Those people were all shocked. One of them went forward to take a look. After confirming that the strange beast was dead, he looked at He Chuan and said with a smile, "Little brother, you're so fierce. You're still fine even after falling from such a high height." He Chuan casually waved his hand. "I'm lucky. This beast became my meat cushion. You're being modest now, aren't you?" That person laughed. "The battle on the city wall is very urgent. Do you want to go back with us? Or do you want to recuperate your spirit energy first?" "I can still fight," He Chuan replied. "Good. Young man, you are indeed energetic." The man immediately led the way. "Let's go. The magic cannons at the east gate don't have enough shells. Let's go and reinforce the defense first." Magic cannons. He Chuan's eyes instantly lit up. It seemed that his trip had not been in vain. Following the footsteps of these awakened ones, he quickly arrived at the city wall and blended into the defensive camp. The magic cannon was right next to him. Its entire body was dark purple as if it was made of some kind of crystal. The cannonballs that were filled were also very strange. They were small, round balls of different colors, and their power was also different. The deduction system operated in a timely manner. Soon, a part of the target's data was deduced. Magic cannon, made of magic crystals. After being filled with energy crystal cores, it can release powerful force. 94 Chapter 94. So that was the so-called magic cannon. He Chuan was slightly disappointed. He had thought that it was something that relied on magic to drive in a magical world, where one could control power with a single incantation. In the end, it was just a crystal launcher, and its function was similar to a pistol. This wasn't interesting anymore. As long as he had enough time, he could find materials that could bear the explosion of spiritual power, and he could still make it. Boring. He Chuan wasn't interested in being unable to fuse new things into his trianical true cultivation manual. He turned his gaze back to the battlefield. He wanted to test if the strength of the strange beasts here had grown. Coincidentally, the beast tide was surging outside Freedom City. Without the artillery support from the East Gate, the deterrence on the battlefield was reduced a lot, so it became a breakthrough point for the strange beasts. The beasts from the North and South gates swarmed over. The pressure on the defense doubled. In less than 3 minutes, the beast tide had reached the foot of the city. The 4 awakened ones attacked one after another, but they still couldn't stabilize the situation. It wasn't just the small and medium-sized strange beasts that came over. There were also large strange beasts and special strange beasts. It was already very difficult for them to deal with a dozen special strange beasts one-on-one, not to mention dealing with so many other strange beasts. The city wall immediately turned into a pot of porridge. Mist, explosions, thorns, exposure, metallization. All kinds of innate abilities were unleashed at the same time, but the effect was minimal. In a short period of time, a gap was broken in the city wall. If not for the huge scale of Freedom City, where the city wall alone was dozens of meters thick, the strange beasts would have long charged into the city and slaughtered the civilians. A small leak may sink a great ship. Don't the guards of Freedom City understand such a simple logic? He Chuan shook his head. I really don't know what they're thinking when they cut off the supply of the magic cannons. He swept his gaze across the city. There didn't seem to be any generals of the Wu Kingdom on the city wall. He didn't know where they had gone. Logically speaking, even if Freedom City was an outlaw land, it still belonged to the Wu Kingdom on the surface and was under the jurisdiction of the generals of the Wu Kingdom. At this moment, you're not here to supervise the battle personally. This is too abnormal. Could it be that the Crown Prince is causing trouble again? He Chuan couldn't make up his mind, so he decided to investigate it later. However, the most urgent matter now was to test the strength of the strange beast first. Thus, in the midst of the chaos, He Chuan secretly made a move and exchanged a move with a special strange beast. In the end, despite using 50% of his strength, the other party was unharmed. He was only forced back a few steps. It has really become stronger, hey? He Chuan was astonished. The size of this beast could only be considered average among the special beasts. Logically speaking, he should be able to kill it in an instant with 20% of his strength. How could it possibly stop him? Forget it. If 50% of my strength isn't enough, I'll try 80%. He struck again. Boom! Flames burst forth, and with a series of explosions, this special strange beast died on the spot. Not even a speck of dust remained. This move directly shocked the nearby awakened ones, and they couldn't stop exclaiming. Holy shit, which big brother is so fierce that he can kill a 4th stage strange beast in an instant? What did the people of the Wuji Dojo say? Awakened ones are divided into spirit cultivators and martial cultivators. Their strength is divided into 9 stages. According to this, the strongest among us is only at the 4th stage. It's impossible for us to kill it so cleanly. Could it be that one of our big brothers has broken through to stage 5? Stop joking, okay? There are only a few stage 5 awakened in the entire continent. How can they break through so easily? Could it be because of their innate ability? How rare is the fire attribute? It's possible, but have any of you seen such a big brother before? Is there such person in the city? Nonsense, since when did everyone in our Freedom City have to reveal their identities? Can't that person not report it? F***ck, stop chatting. The strange beasts are pressing on us again. Focus on the battle. F***ck, with Big Brother doing controlling the field, what's there to be afraid of? Charge! Kill these bastards! The awakened ones who were supposed to be on the defensive side suddenly became excited. They howled and fought bravely against the enemy. After they were certain that their big brother was backing them up, the group of people began to fight in a more open and loose manner. Facing some of the strange beasts that had charged up the city wall, they actually dared to engage in close combat without any worries. However, the big brother they spoke of, He Chuan, had long left the city wall without anyone noticing. So the strange beasts are divided according to their levels of strength. Walking on the streets of Freedom City, He Chuan's thoughts were somewhat heavy. According to what those spirit cultivators had said, if a special strange beast of this level was only at the 4th stage, then it meant that there was an even more powerful existence above this level. If this strange beast came to Glory City, would he be able to stop it? I have to think of a way to increase my strength. Why don't I go and chat with the dojo master of the Wuji dojo about my cultivation experience? Maybe I can find an opportunity to break through to the 5th stage. He Chuan made up his mind and walked around the various city walls. In the end, he didn't see a single person from the El Wuji dojo. This was a little strange. Didn't they say that they had come to Freedom City to seek refuge? Why wasn't there anyone there? He had no choice but to pull a random spirit cultivator over to inquire about the situation. He only found out after understanding the situation. It turned out that not long ago, the Wuji dojo master had left the Freedom City with his disciples and returned to the main dojo. He had been a step late. However, he hadn't been able to find the dojo master. Instead, he had been able to find the city lord of Freedom City. This person was currently in a meeting with the high-ranking officials and generals in the city. After listening for a while, he realized that they were actually discussing the reason for this earthquake. They hadn't mentioned the Crown Prince. The city lord believed Freedom City had never experienced an earthquake before. Such a terrifying disaster that could disrupt the entire mountain range wouldn't appear for no reason at all. A general felt that it was now the time when the spiritual essence was recovering. Even the most unbelievable thing could happen. Perhaps this was an earth-shattering phenomenon caused by some kind of precious treasure about to be born. This statement was unanimously agreed upon by the others. So much so that at the time when the city was besieged by the beast tide, they actually began to plan when they would leave the city to explore. This had nothing to do with him. He Chuan did not have an interest to understand what this group of people wanted to do. He immediately planned to look for the merchants who had come here from Glory City to see if they had any ways to get the blueprint to make the magic cannon. In the end, he had only taken 2 steps when he heard the people in the meeting room speak his name. Since we are going to take a detour to the Snow Mountain Range, why don't we go through Glory City? We can also take a look at the situation there. If He Chuan dies, we can also report to the Crown Prince. Yo! As expected, there was something. He Chuan narrowed his eyes slightly and stomped on the door of the conference room. A cold wind poured into the room. Along with the fierce spirit energy that had turned into flames on his body, it continuously surged. The more than 10 people present were all shocked by this powerful pressure and could not move. They could only turn their gazes. When they saw He Chuan's appearance clearly, everyone was shocked. The 18th Prince. Why is it you? 95 Chapter 95. In your eyes, I'm still the 18th Prince. He Chuan smiled faintly as he walked into the room. The oppressive aura on his body continued to rise, making it increasingly difficult for everyone present to breathe. Among the dozens of people, the strongest was the city lord, who was already in the 4th stage. However, he was horrified to discover that he was unable to resist in front of He Chuan, who was only a 3rd stage awakened. Not to mention struggling, he couldn't even use the spiritual energy in his body. How is this possible? The city lord looked at He Chuan, who was getting closer and closer in disbelief. Didn't the 18th prince not awaken? How could he have such majestic spiritual energy? This mother ***. Could it be that he only awakened after he went to take up his post in Glory City? That's not right. It's only been a month or so. Where did he get such powerful cultivation? This question puzzled everyone present. No one could answer it for them. He Chuan naturally wouldn't either. He stood still in the room, his gaze sweeping over everyone as he spoke slowly. Just now, who said they wanted to visit Glory City to visit me? Hearing this, the CTY Lord's gaze flickered, but he did not say a word. Looks like it's you, City Lord. He Chuan had a gentle smile on his face as he looked at him. I'll ask, and you'll answer. Do you agree? Your Highness, if you have any questions, just ask me. It's just that what you've done is a little too much, right? The city lord also laughed. Threatening the CTY Lord is a serious crime, not to mention there are other high-ranking officials and colleagues present. Even if you're a prince, you can't act so recklessly, right? I'm not interested in playing these roundabout games with you. He Chuan's expression suddenly became abnormally cold, daring to collude with the crown prince to harm the royal descendant. Even if I kill you now, no one will be able to convict me of the crime. As he spoke, flames erupted in the room, and a scorching power instantly swept across the entire area, tightly enveloping them. Do you want to live, or do you want to die? It was as if a voice from the depths of hell had fallen. Several people present could not help but shudder. One of them felt that after looking at the city lord and He Chuan back and forth, he would have to rely on himself if he wanted to live. He could not help but shout out loud. Your Highness! I'll speak. Very good. He Chuan's gaze shifted. What did the crown prince ask you to do? That person took a deep breath and was about to speak when he was interrupted by the city lord's loud shout. Shut up! The city lord glared at him. If you want to die, don't drag us into it. You have to understand the crown prince's and He Chuan's identity. Hearing what he said, the man began to hesitate again. That's right, who is the crown prince? The heir to the throne of the martial kingdom. High officials from all over the world have to go up and fawn over him. If he were to expose him, wouldn't his entire family be implicated if he was found out? After hesitating for a while, he decided to keep his mouth shut. Seeing this, the city lord also heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at He Chuan with a smile. Your Highness, what do you think? Fight or kill, we will not have any complaints. Then you can go to hell. He Chuan condensed the spiritual energy in his palm and was about to kill the chicken to warn the monkeys when suddenly, he heard a series of hurried footsteps outside the meeting room. His heart moved, and he circulated the spiritual energy to make the door automatically close. The voice of the other party reported from outside very quickly. My lord! Something bad has happened. He Chuan asked calmly, what's wrong? The east city wall has fallen. Hearing this, the city lord's expression changed drastically. He asked anxiously, how is that possible? Didn't I arrange for 6 4th-stage spirit cultivators to guard it? There are also hundreds of magic cannons to cover the attack. How could it be broken through so quickly? There's a problem with the logistics. The supply of cannonballs has been cut off, resulting in a gap in the battle line. All the strange beasts nearby have attacked. The awakened ones in the city have suffered heavy casualties. They've all retreated to defend the inner city now. You mother ***. The city lord cursed. How could there be a problem with the logistics? I've just received the reserve resources from the imperial court, and 300,000 crystals are gone just like that. Sir. It's because rat-type mutated beasts are attacking from underground, and there are no awakened ones guarding the warehouse. Even the quartermaster was wiped out. F***ck, why didn't you report this earlier? You were the one who said that you wanted to hold a secret meeting and that no one was allowed to get close. Then why didn't you let the awakened ones investigate? Why did you wait until now to tell me? You didn't allow these external forces to get close to the storehouse, so we didn't dare decide on our own. How's the battle situation now? All the 4th stage spirit cultivators have managed to escape. As for the rest, more than half of them died. It was over. It was all over. The city lord took a deep breath, feeling as if the world had turned dark. Freedom City was most proud of the indestructible defensive facilities in the outer city. Now without the protection of this expensive equipment, how could the walls in the inner city, which were only made of stone, withstand the attack of the beast tide? It was all He Chuan's fault. He would have taken charge of the overall situation if he had not come here. How could such a big mistake happen? The more the city lord thought about it, the angrier he got. He could not help but look at He Chuan with a hateful gaze. Look at what you've done. Hee, now no one can think of living anymore. Let's die together. Noisy. He Chuan snorted coldly. The flames on his hand condensed and quickly transformed into a long sharp arrow. It shot forward and went through the city lord's head. The latter fell straight down as if he had been electrocuted. The 10 or so people beside him could not help but feel a chill down their spine when they saw this scene. The 18th prince was not as gentle and refined as the rumors said. He killed as he pleased without giving the other party a chance to struggle. Then, the next moment, they saw He Chuan's gaze slowly turn and look over. Do you want to live? The corners of his mouth lifted slightly, like a smiling demon. Live? How? Someone sneered, now that the beast tide has broken through the city, we are like turtles in a jar. No one can think of leaving. Is that so? He Chuan suddenly stomped on the ground with one foot and then used the rebound force to fly into the air. He flies. When he used this move, it immediately caused everyone present to turn pale. Do you still think that I can't leave? No one said anything, and everyone was silent. Looks like you all don't want to live anymore. He Chuan shrugged indifferently. Originally, I thought that you all still had some value and that it wasn't impossible to bring you to Glory City to interrogate you for 2 days. But now, it seems that you don't cherish this opportunity. At this moment, the expressions of several people changed. The person who wanted to give up the crown prince immediately responded. If your highness can protect my family, feel free to ask me anything. I will definitely do my best. Very good. From now on, follow my orders, understand? Understand. All right. He Chuan snapped his fingers. Instantly, the pressure on this person disappeared without a trace. Go, drag out those who had participated in the Crown Prince's plot. The other party immediately took action, directly pushing the 3 people to the ground. Your Highness, it's them. I only know the surface information of the matter between the Crown Prince and the City Lord. These few know more. 96 Chapter 96. You dog, you betrayed me. Damn it, you're going to die a horrible death. When I get out of here, I'm going to teach you a lesson. The 3 people who had been pointed out cursed loudly without caring about their image. However, when they saw He Chuan's slightly furrowed brows, they immediately shut their mouths. The city lord's death was still fresh in their minds. No one dared to be the unlucky one at this moment. Don't scold him so quickly. I didn't say that I wanted to kill you. He Chuan chuckled. If you want to live, you must work harder, understand? The 3 of them were stunned. What did the 18th prince mean by this? He Chuan did not explain further. He made them listen to his orders and began mobilizing the city's soldiers and civilians. Although these people all had ulterior motives, they had reached a short-term consensus on the matter of survival. In the face of such a huge crisis like the beast tide, even if they wanted to resist, they did not have the ability, let alone the opportunity. Therefore, in the face of He Chuan's orders, they did not dare to make any changes and worked exceptionally hard to implement them. It took them less than 3 minutes to collect the magic cannon blueprints and find the blacksmiths. He Chuan, who had achieved his goal, began thinking about bringing these people out of the city. He did not expect that the heavenly Dao rebate buff would be triggered. Defend the city against the beast tide, you can activate the law of karma, thousands miles of dead souls. Reward, compensation from the imperial court. Give up on defending and lead the citizens to flee the city. Successfully defend the city against the beast tide in Glory City, you can activate the law of karma, #1 in the world. Reward, massive rewards. He Chuan's eyes immediately lit up. Could it be that after he killed the city lord, he could control the people in the city, causing the heavenly Dao rebates buff to think that the Freedom City was his property? Good heavens, there was such a good thing? Moreover, regardless of whether it was defended or not, there would be rewards. The second reward was even more enticing. What was a massive reward mean? This meant that there was more than one reward. There might be something that could allow him to break through quickly. It was just that it was challenging to complete. Not only did he have to lead the citizens to flee the city, he also had to lead Glory City to survive the entire beast tide in the future. This difficulty was even greater than him overturning the Wu Kingdom and declaring himself king. However, there was nothing he could do. The conditions were set. There was no place to change them, even if he wanted to. It just so happened that he couldn't stay in Freedom City. He just had to take the opportunity. It was just that countless strange beasts had already filled the area between the inner and outer cities. He couldn't break through directly under the situation where all the fourth stage awakened ones had fled. It wasn't realistic to kill the beast tide alone. What should I do? Standing at the highest point of the inner city and looking at the dense magic cannons on the outer city wall, He Chuan's heart skipped a beat. Got it. He still had 10 high-grade spirit crystals, which were the energy source of the fourth stage strange beast. He had just asked the generals in the city. Currently, no one could kill the fourth stage strange beast, so there wasn't even a single fourth-tier spirit crystal stored in the storehouse. Under such circumstances, if the magic cannon could resist the beast tide with ordinary spiritual crystals, what would the effect be if it was a fourth-tier spiritual crystal? He immediately works on it. He Chuan immediately flew to the east city wall and used his innate ability to sweep away a large number of small strange beasts that were eating corpses. Then, he found a magic cannon that could still be used, and tried to put in a fourth-tier spirit crystal before activating it with spiritual energy. Instantly, the body of the cannon lit up with a dazzling white light. No one knew what had happened. After a loud boom that shook heaven and earth, the mountains trembled, and the world shook. When the light dissipated, they looked at the field again. There was already a vast bottomless pit in the city. The tens of thousands of strange beasts surrounding the area were directly reduced by 1/10. Among them, there was also a fourth-stage strange beast. However, because it had been greatly strengthened, it did not die. However, most of its body had already been destroyed by the endless radiance of energy. They believed that it wasn't far from death. How terrifying! He Chuan himself didn't expect it either. Logically speaking, the fourth-tier spirit crystals he had were all obtained in the past. In terms of strength, they were far inferior to the fourth-stage strange beasts here in Freedom City, so they shouldn't have such oppressive effects. What's the reason? He was careful and decided to explore it in the future when he had time. Right now, it was more important to save the people here. There were still 9 spirit crystals left, and he used them all. Boom! 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 Amidst the explosions, deep pits appeared one after another on the ground. The pits connected and became an insurmountable ravine. There was one on each side, and the middle road became relatively safe. As long as the remaining strange beasts were eliminated, the people in the inner city would naturally be able to head to the outer city and leave under his protection. After that, it was time for the awakened ones to shine. They wanted to live too. No one was willing to feed their own flesh and blood to the strange beasts as food. They were all fighting with their lives on the line at such a critical moment. After that, He Chuan personally stepped in to protect them, and no fourth stage strange beasts could get close. Soon, a troop of nearly 100,000 people marched out of the city. The strange beasts were extremely furious. They let out terrifying roars, but there was nothing they could do. He Chuan had adjusted the landing point of the cannonballs so that the holes created by the explosions were slanted. There was no way for them to climb up the walkway through the soft soil. They could only stand by the moat's edge and watch the large group of food left. In order to prevent them from pursuing him, he even set a fire at the gap of the east city wall. The fire spread quickly through his spirit energy, directly sealing the strange beasts within the city. Those who dared to touch it were all turned into ashes. The small strange beasts scattered outside were even less of a concern. A third stage awakened could quickly deal with them, so he didn't need to deal with them at all. Half of the operation to escape the city had been completed. Now, they had to think of a way to safely bring such a huge team to Glory City. 97 Chapter 97. It was peaceful outside of Freedom City. He actually escaped. Several generals who were subordinate to Freedom City felt that it was unbelievable. This was the siege of hundreds of thousands of beasts. If it was changed to an ordinary fourth stage awakened, forget about saving people, even protecting themselves would be a problem. In the end, you, a third stage spiritual cultivator, single-handedly fished 100,000 people out of the sea of beasts? Ridiculous. Unreasonable. If such a feat were to be spread out, perhaps no one would believe it. Apart from being surprised, their impression of He Chuan also changed quite a bit. If there was still hostility before, now there was only respect for his strength. Because they knew they were not qualified to be He Chuan's enemy. Under this psychological influence, all the higher UPS of Freedom City began to restrain their troops, making them obey He Chuan's orders entirely and treat him as the highest entity. Needless to say, the ordinary people. They were rootless duckweed to begin with, only knowing how to drift with the tide. Only some merchants and family members with a bit of fame could have a say in some small matters. On the other hand, the awakened ones were a bit dishonest and wanted to leave one by one. They all felt Glory City was not a good place to go and planned to leave the team and fly alone. He Chuan did not stop them. This group of people either wanted thieves or scumbags who caused trouble. Because of various reasons, they were forced to come to Freedom City to survive. To them, Freedom City was just a shelter. The little sense of belonging disappeared with the destruction of Freedom City. The lives of 100,000 people and soldiers were even less important. To bring such a person to Glory City, even if they were a spiritual cultivator, they would not be of much help. They might even cause him trouble. Very quickly, as the awakened left the team one after another, the fighting strength of the entire team also decreased sharply. The people had some complaints about this, and uneasiness spread in everyone's hearts. The army was still all right. It seemed that the mental quality of the soldiers in Freedom City was pretty good. There were no riots. With their help in restraining the people, it did not cause much of a problem for He Chuan. However, the most important thing at the moment was to make preparations in advance to deal with the possible dangers that might follow. He Chuan looked down at the entire scene from midair. Looking at the vast and mighty army under his feet, he felt a little troubled. The movement caused by the marching of 10,000 people was really too big. The strange beasts were born with keen senses. He believed that they would be besieged by them very soon. Now that the main force had entered the dense forest, fighting in such an environment was very disadvantageous to them. The most significant limitation was that He Chuan couldn't abuse his innate ability. Otherwise, once a forest of fire was triggered, the civilians and the army wouldn't be able to move in time. What should he do? He Chuan looked at the army. As they had fled from Freedom City in a hurry, they didn't have enough supplies. He didn't bring any spirit crystals or heavy armor or shields. They even had only brought a small portion of inscription arrows that Freedom City had spent a lot of money to buy, which could easily penetrate the fur of a second-stage strange beast. In order to leave Freedom City as quickly as possible, all the soldiers had to travel light. In the eyes of the unawakened strange beasts, they were just a pile of meat that could move. Well, there were only 4 magic cannons left. He had personally moved them down from the city tower. It was just that he had acted too hastily back then and hadn't noticed 3 of them had been destroyed. As a result, only 1 of them was of use now. Could he do something about it? He Chuan closed his eyes and started deducing. His brain was working rapidly. Very soon, the deducing system gave him an interesting answer. The success rate of using the magic cannon to resist beast tide is 0.00006%. The success rate of utilizing the magic cannon to resist the beast tide is 73.81%. What does it mean? Was the deduction system broken? He Chuan frowned slightly, but soon, the corner of his mouth curled up into a smile. As expected of the deduction system, it helped him find the key to solving the problem so quickly. In fact, facing the potential danger of the beast tide attacking, he should not have thought about how to face them. To be honest, if he wanted to ensure the safety of 100,000 people and soldiers in the wild, it would be impossible without the protection of more than twice the number of awakened ones. However, as long as he simply changed his train of thought and prevented the beast tide from attacking, the problem would be solved. It was not difficult to do this. He just needed to create a bigger commotion in the distance to cover up the noise of the army's movement, and attract the attention of the beast tide. The magic cannon was the best choice. However, he didn't have any spirit crystals on hand, so he could only hunt on the spot. He Chuan immediately took action. He directly hunted dozens of strange beasts nearby as reserves. He brought the magic cannon high up in the sky and fired at the area thousands of meters away from both sides of the team. Boom! 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 The deafening sound continued without end. With the spread of a highly terrifying energy shock, he attracted the attention of many strange beasts at once. He Chuan could clearly see that all the strange beasts within a few hundred meters from where the cannonball had landed were rushing over. Not bad. The effect was excellent. He had only used a second-tier spiritual crystal just now. It should have been more effective if it had been a third-tier spiritual crystal. However, he still had to pay attention to the shockwave range. If he had missed, the casualties caused would definitely be much greater than the beast tide's attack. Apart from that, they also had to pay attention to the strange beasts in the blind spots. They had already sneaked close to the team, ready to attack at any time. He Chuan had no time to split himself up, so it was difficult for him to react at the first moment. Fortunately, there were still a dozen or so third-stage awakened generals in the army. With their help and the few inscription arrows the soldiers carried, they could stabilize the situation as long as they didn't encounter a fourth-stage strange beast. With the help of many people, the team advanced steadily. After 2 days and 2 nights of arduous travel, they finally arrived at the deserted Gobi Desert. 98 Chapter 98. The team had no place to hide in the endless yellow sand region. They were constantly exposed to the vision of the strange beasts. The awakened ones and the soldiers were guarding the outer perimeter. They were on full alert while the civilians were protected in the center. After traveling for the past few days, everyone was exhausted and needed proper rest. He Chuan stood mid-air and looked into the distance, ready to deal with unusual situations. After a few days of migration, the civilians and soldiers of Freedom City gradually changed their initial views of He Chuan. Unlike the other princes and nobles who were indifferent to the lives of the civilians, the 18th prince was willing to charge at the forefront at the crucial moment and fight with the strange beasts. The yellow sand was blown by a gentle breeze, causing ripples. He Chuan's gaze suddenly turned sharp because the ripples caused by the yellow sand weren't caused by the wind but by the strange beasts hidden under the yellow sand. They were heading towards their resting place. Everyone, be on alert. There are strange beasts beneath the desert. He Chuan quickly gave the order, and at the same time, his mind began to deduce the results rapidly. The system quickly gave the results of the deduction. The Crimson Sand Demon Scorpion King in the desert led the Crimson Sand Demon Scorpion group to attack. You chose to lead all the soldiers and awakened ones to stay behind to resist. However, the Crimson Sand Demon Scorpions broke through the defensive circle, and the battle caused a large number of casualties. You suffered heavy losses, and your reputation fell. The Crimson Sand Demon Scorpions seemed very difficult to defend against. If the main force stayed behind to resist, it would instead cause casualties. It would be better to cover the rear and buy time. He Chuan immediately gave the order, escort the people to continue advancing towards Glory City. There must be no mistakes. He did not have time to make any further deductions. The Crimson Sand Demon Scorpions were moving extremely fast in the desert. It would be difficult for ordinary soldiers and people to escape if they were surrounded. Your Highness, what about you? We will never abandon Your Highness. Your Highness, you and the people should leave first. Let us stay behind to cover the rear. The eyes of a few brave soldiers turned red. They knew He Chuan's intention. In such a dangerous situation as the 18th Prince, he was actually willing to stay behind and cover the rear. Military orders are as heavy as a mountain. I will be fine. Move quickly. He Chuan took out the magic cannon and inserted the few remaining magic crystals into it. He flew high into the sky and fired a shot at the dense area of the Crimson Sand Scorpions. He wanted first to disrupt the sight and route of the Crimson Sand Demon Scorpions and, at the same time, to buy time for the retreating troops. The awakened soldiers accepted He Chuan's order and quickly left with the panicked troops. Everyone's fatigue disappeared in fear, and their instincts drove them to run for their lives. Boom! The magic crystal cannon's energy exploded in the desert's depths with a loud bang. Blood-stained yellow sand flew in the air, mixed with minced meat and green juice, scattering in all directions. The death of its kin angered the Crimson Sand Demon Scorpion King. It rolled out from under the yellow sand. Its body was nearly 5 meters long, and it looked like it was wearing a white ghostly mask on its back. The creepy face was the size of a basketball and looked terrifying. The scorpions were each more than 1 meter long, and they were even bigger than adult wild dogs. They all jumped up high and used the poisonous hooks on their tails to attack He Chuan, who was in the air. He Chuan, who was in the air, immediately rose to a higher altitude. The Scarlet Sand Scorpion's jumping ability was terrific, and a few of them almost pierced the surface of his feet. The Crimson Sand Demon Scorpion King shot out a stream of dark poison toward He Chuan, who was in the air. He Chuan did not dare to take it head-on. He used his speed to dodge it. The poison did not hit the target, and it floated down from the air, making a sizzling sound of corrosion. Fortunately, he had the advantage in the air. Otherwise, he would be in a dangerous situation when facing the Scarlet Sand Demon Scorpion group. The Scarlet Sand Demon Scorpion King angrily opened its bloody mouth and let out a low and hoarse roar. The scorpions received the order and moved on the surface of the yellow sand like surging waves. After getting into formation, they shot out dark green venom at He Chuan, who was in the air. The venom that filled the sky was even fiercer than the Gatling machine gun and surrounded He Chuan. At this moment, the marshal who had led the troops away turned around and saw this terrifying and unforgettable scene. The experienced marshal could not help but sigh. The Crimson Sand Demon Scorpions were well coordinated in team battles, advancing and retreating freely. They were able to carry out their orders and even reached the level of the human army. They were the most difficult opponents to deal with. The marshal could only silently pray for good luck for He Chuan. He Chuan activated his tyrannical true cultivation manual to protect his body, while carefully avoiding the venom. The magic cannon fired 2 more shots at the dense area of the crimson sand scorpions. The magic cannon mercilessly harvested the lives of the scorpions, fresh blood dyed the yellow sand, and the bloody smell was even more pungent under the sunlight. Unfortunately, there were not many spiritual crystals left. Otherwise, the magic cannon alone would be enough to make the crimson sand scorpions suffer. He Chuan needed to buy enough time for his troops to escape. He took out the demonic Buddhist monk knife and landed on the ground, launching an attack on the crimson sand demon scorpion king. The 2-meter-long poisonous hook of the crimson sand demon scorpion king was as agile as a spear, stabbing straight at He Chuan, who was charging at him. The sharp poisonous hook emitted a strange black light as if it was going to tear the air apart. He Chuan narrowly avoided it. The poisonous hook brushed past his cheek. If his skin and flesh were cut open, the strong poison would flow through his blood and enter his heart, killing him instantly. The 2 unlucky crimson sand demon scorpions could not dodge in time. Like candied haws, they were easily penetrated by the sharp poison hook. They struggled in pain a few times and lost their lives. The crimson sand demon scorpion king shook off the corpse on the poison hook. It wanted to continue attacking but found that it had lost its target. He Chuan took advantage of the opponent's missed attack and used his agility to circle around the crimson sand demon scorpion king's broad back armor. The demonic Buddhist monk knife in his hand slashed downwards diagonally. Sensing the danger behind its head, the crimson sand demon scorpion king instinctively swayed its body, trying to dodge the fatal attack. However, it was still a step too late. The demonic Buddhist monk knife brushed past the crimson sand demon scorpion king's head, and a wound as long as a thin line appeared on its head, slowly oozing blood. Half of its black head flew up. Red, white, and green juices mixed together, and the crimson sand demon scorpion king fell onto the yellow sand. The crimson sand demon scorpion group lost its command and temporarily fell into a state of chaos. Seeing this, He Chuan immediately turned around and flew in the direction where the main group had left. He Chuan, who had left, did not notice that there was a violent vibration coming from below the yellow sand. A scorpion that was even bigger than the dead crimson sand demon scorpion king slowly emerged from under the yellow sand. Its body was 8 meters long, and the surrounding crimson sand demon scorpion group was as small as ants. On its huge head stood a scorpion that was dark gold in color. It was about 1.7 meters tall, and its body stood upright like a human. Its carapace covered its face, and 2 pieces of golden chest armor wrapped around its bulging chest. The scorpion didn't have a single bit of fat on its waist, but its lower body was the crimson sand scorpion's unique 4 pairs of legs. Just looking at its upper body, it was impossible for it to be one entity with the strange beasts. The giant scorpion looked at the countless corpses around it and roared at He Chuan's back. It wanted to take revenge for the deaths of its kind. Hiss! Hiss! The golden half-human half-scorpion on top of the giant scorpion's head let out a hoarse low-frequency sound. Its scarlet eyes emitted light of wisdom. The giant scorpion seemed to have been reprimanded. It immediately lowered its huge head and submitted to the noble queen. 99 Chapter 99. Congratulations on successfully leading the people to escape and safely arrive at Glory City. The law of karma wise general has been rewarded. Successfully leading Glory City to resist the onslaught of all the beast tide. The law of karma number 1 in the world has been rewarded. He Chuan's face immediately revealed a look of joy. He did not expect the mission to be a 2-stage reward. He once again used his deductive ability. Distributing resources, able to activate the law of karma, thousands of gold are gone. Obtained rewards for distribution of wealth, happy rebate. If you do not distribute resources, no notable changes in the world plot. Please wait for the beast tide to arrive. The rest was still the same. Previously, he was still thinking about how to improve his overall strength. He did not expect to receive such a generous reward, which solved the urgent matter at hand. According to the law of karma, the more he distributed his wealth, the more generous the reward would be. When he returned to Glory City, Su Ke, Lin Cheng, Lin Yi, and Su Wan came to welcome him. When they heard He Chuan was facing the Crimson Sand Demon Scorpion King alone to buy time for the large group to escape, they felt even more admiration in their hearts. Everyone firmly believed that under He Chuan's leadership, they would be able to tide over the difficult situation of the Beast Tide. After returning to the city lord's mansion, He Chuan asked Lin Cheng to gather the soldiers and military officers according to the list of names. He wanted to give out the sacred pills and enchanted weapons. When everyone heard that they would be rewarded with the sacred pill, they were shocked that they went speechless. This kind of thing was enough to increase the strength of an awakened one. No matter who it was, as long as they consumed the sacred pill, they would be able to surpass the awakened ones of the same period. He Chuan was looking for loyalty. Regardless of their strength, they had to be loyal to him, not the emperor of the Wu Kingdom. I wonder if the 9th princess has thought of my proposal. Seeing that Su Wan did not leave, he actually understood her choice and asked symbolically. You can call me Su Wan. I'm willing to stay and help Glory City tide over the difficulties. Su Wan lowered her head. Over the many days of recuperation, the paleness on her face had disappeared and was replaced by 2 reddened healthy cheeks. She was dressed in a silvery white and beautiful snow-white robe, looking graceful and elegant. Her eyelashes lightly fluttered, and her eyes were as clear as water. She was beautiful beyond compare. Very good. You won't regret your choice today. Take the 3 sacred pills. He Chuan nodded in satisfaction. He would follow the plan and help Su Wan ascend the throne. The rise of the Queen plan? That sounded good. The military camp was already bustling with noise. Because they heard that the city lord would give out enchanted weapons and sacred pills. There was no need to say more about the sacred pills awakened ones dreamed of. There were also enchanted weapons. Even the lowest tier 1 weapons were much better than the broken weapons in their hands. Not to mention tier 2 and tier 3 weapons. All the soldiers and officers were beaming with joy. This was the first time such a reward had ever been given. Who wouldn't be tempted? As there weren't many people who were rewarded, He Chuan called them over and personally gave them the equipment and pills. In fact, it could be considered buying the hearts of the people. He wanted the soldiers to know who was good to them and whose order they should listen to. They were even more excited when the city lord personally handed out the reward. After all, He Chuan's current reputation was well known. Many soldiers took him as a role model. In the future, when I go to the battlefield, I will definitely kill a few strange beasts until they are so scared and piss on their pants. A soldier fantasized about his heroic appearance on the battlefield while clutching the sacred pill tightly in his hand. You'd better forget about it. You can't even raise a shield, a colleague beside him mercilessly ridiculed. You know **T. If I succeed in breaking through, you will fall to the last place. This soldier didn't dare to show weakness and was full of hope for the future. The adjutant beside him couldn't help but glare at them when he heard the discussion. Don't be arrogant here. If you follow the city lord, never mind a mere beast. You can even kill a mutated beast king. After being reprimanded by the adjutant, they quickly lowered their heads obediently. However, they were even more yearning for the future. The future was just around the corner. Of course, it wasn't just the 2 of them who were in this state. All the new soldiers were filled with anticipation. After becoming awakened, if they were lucky, they would be able to leap to become a 2nd stage or 3rd stage awakened. At that time, a mere strange beast would be nothing. He Chuan quickly distributed the rewards and then encouraged the soldiers. Those who haven't been promoted, don't be anxious. The resources are limited for the time being, but as long as all of you perform meritorious deeds and remain loyal to this prince, you will be rewarded next time. Pacifying and words of enticement were necessary things to do. The soldiers who had taken the sacred pill were all gathered together, and He Chuan personally added the enhanced guiding technique. The 1st stage, 2nd stage. The soldiers who had taken the sacred pill began to increase in spiritual energy and soon began to break through. Some of the awakened came to a standstill, while some of the awakened were lucky enough to be promoted. One of the most talented ones directly rose from the first to the third stage, jumping 2 whole levels in a row. If it weren't for the Crown Prince secretly hindering He Chuan and transferring all the talented soldiers away in advance, there might have been even more people jumping levels. However, He Chuan was confident that with the support of the deduction system, he would be able to survive the beast tide attack this time. Next, it was the turn of the officers who had contributed to the defense of the beast tide last time. Officers at the rank of sergeants were rewarded with a Tier 2 weapon and 2 sacred pills. Officers at the rank of centurions were rewarded with a Tier 3 weapon and 3 sacred pills. Su Ke slowly announced. The officers couldn't believe their ears as if they were in a dream. As usual, He Chuan went up to personally hand out the rewards and said some encouraging words. Military advisor Linya will be rewarded with 3 sacred pills, 2 enlightenment pills, 1 Tier 3 magic robe, 1 Tier 3 weapon, and 1 Tier 4 necklace for leading Glory City to defend against the strange beasts. The heaven-defying rewards attracted the envious gazes of the people around Linya. Linya did not expect He Chuan's reward to be so generous. Military advisor Linya, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and thank the city lord for his kindness, Su Ke quickly reminded her. I am willing to follow the 18th prince to death and will not have other purposes. Linya's eyes were dark, and she was destined to stay where she was. Over the years, she had tried many methods and consumed all kinds of pills, but none were effective. 2 enlightenment pills would allow her eyes to recover, and no longer have to worry about her blindness. How could Linya not be happy that she had welcomed a new life? After spending so much time together, she knew she could follow He Chuan without worry because he was not someone who would burn the bridge after crossing the river. The competition for imperial power was cruel. Linya was willing to help He Chuan, so she chose to stand by the side of the 18th prince. He Chuan personally helped Linya up. This girl did not disappoint him. She was his best right-hand man. Glory City could not do without her. Your Highness. The soldiers' fighting spirit is heightened now. No matter what the difficulties are, they can be easily solved. Su Ke looked at the soldiers who were still upgrading. Glory City's overall strength had increased once again. Their chances of dealing with the beast tide had become more significant. 100 Chapter 100. He Chuan sized up the soldiers and officers under his command and nodded his head in satisfaction. The future guarantee of Glory City was also part of his team. The spiritual energy in the hall continued to fluctuate, and everyone had basically completed the increase in strength. Some of the soldiers couldn't help but feel their hands itch. They provoked their colleagues around them, wanting to have a good fight. The second beast tide was about to arrive. The increase in their overall strength allowed He Chuan to heave a long sigh of relief. When the time came, they would have to face 6th or even 7th stage strange beasts, and their numbers would increase by several times. The pressure of defending the city would come from 1 to 10, which meant that the soldiers of Glory City would have to face 10 of them alone. The pressure and danger they faced would increase exponentially. Unknowingly, the officers had also finished absorbing the sacred pill. As far as He Chuan's eyes could see, there was only one person left who was still absorbing the sacred pill. Su Wan. Su Kingdom's 9th princess, Su Wan, was actually still absorbing the medicinal efficacy. She was so talented. He Chuan could not believe it. Just as he was having some doubts, Su Wan slowly opened her beautiful eyes. The corners of her mouth rose slightly and revealed a gentle smile. In fact, Su Wan was also a little surprised. She did not expect the medicinal pills provided by He Chuan to have such sufficient medicinal efficacy, unlike the medicinal pills the Su Kingdom had before. What panacea! In fact, the medicinal efficacy was pitifully low. It was difficult to break through a stage. And now, her cultivation had already broken through from the 3rd stage to the 4th stage. She was only one step away from the 5th stage. It was incredible. Suwan had envisioned what ordinary people thought was impossible, but her beautiful face showed no emotion. He Chuan gave her a look, indicating that they should talk somewhere else. The two came to He Chuan's room. "Thank you for your reward, City Lord," Suwan expressed her gratitude. After all, she was still working hard, but He Chuan took the initiative to give her 3 sacred pills. As expected of the 9th princess of Su Kingdom. "The energy you emitted when you broke through seems different from others. If you don't mind, can you share it with me?" He Chuan was very interested in her way of breaking through. 3 sacred pills allowed her to break through a whole level. It should be known that the further she went, the more difficult it became. It was not uncommon for a person to break through to the 2nd stage. It was even acceptable for a person to break through from the 2nd stage to the 3rd stage. However, when one reached the 3rd stage to the 4th stage, it was a threshold that countless people would never be able to cross in their lifetime. Even if the system rewarded good things, it was still somewhat inconceivable. Therefore, he really wanted to find out what secret this 9th princess of the Su Kingdom was hiding. In fact, it's just as you think. Due to the special bloodline of the Su Kingdom's royal family, as long as there is a suitable elixir, the Su Kingdom's royal family can cross the stage. Suwan did not intend to hide it. However, the higher the level of the elixirs, the harder it was to get them. Otherwise, Su Kingdom would have already unified the world. If there are high-level elixirs, wouldn't you be invincible? He Chuan teased with a smile. This is also the restriction of the royal family of Su Kingdom. In the early stage, there are suitable elixirs, so of course, it's very fast to cross over the realms. However, if there are no corresponding elixirs, then the cultivation will stagnate, or even regress. Suwan sighed helplessly. If she could really be invincible, there would not need to be in a friendly relationship, let alone run away. He Chuan actually understood the reason. Taking elixirs to advance, if coupled with the alchemy technique, Suwan's future was simply unimaginable. These 2 pieces of equipment are given to you. I hope you can help Glory City tide over the difficulties. He took out a Tier 3 enchanted armor and a Tier 3 enchanted long saber and handed them to Suwan. Suwan gently stroked the 2 pieces of equipment. The streamlined and slim purple armor could cover the upper half of her body very well. The lower half of it was a skirt armor, which matched her figure perfectly. Moreover, it had a sense of beauty to it. The pure black hilt of the sword was carved with roses. The 3-foot-long body of the sword and the black hair fell down, instantly splitting into 2. I won't be rewarded for doing nothing. I haven't made any contributions to Glory City. The 3 sacred pills from before were already a great favor. If I take another weapon now, I'm afraid it will cause dissatisfaction. Suwan was in the royal family, so she was very clear on some things. No matter. I'm the city lord. How to distribute the resources is up to me. And I'm appointing you as the Vice Marshal of Glory City to assist me in protecting Glory City. He Chuan's tone was decisive. He did not care what others thought. Who dared to gossip behind his back? He did not mind letting the other party know of his methods. Thank you, City Lord. It's better to follow your orders. Suwan saw that she could not refuse, so she could only accept it. All right, you can leave first. He Chuan sighed helplessly. He had to beg even if he wanted to give something. This woman did not know what was good for her. Either that, or she was deliberately playing hard to get. Sooner or later, he would have to teach her a good lesson. He did not know how Linya was doing. He rushed to the Lin family mansion. When Lin Cheng saw He Chuan had come, he hurriedly went out to welcome him. Greetings, City Lord. Cut the crap. Where is Linya? How is she? He Chuan was very concerned about this military advisor. I'm not sure yet. Ever since Xiaoya entered the room, there has been no movement. Perhaps because she was born with an eye disease, she has been unable to. Lin Cheng did not finish his sentence. He was afraid that the enlightened pill would not work. Unable to recover? Could it be that the Lin family also had a special constitution? The enlightenment pill was a pill that specialized in treating eye diseases. Moreover, it was produced by the system, so it had to be of high quality. No matter how awesome you were, his system was more awesome. At that time, the system had mentioned that the probability of recovering from an eye disease was 80%. How could it not work? Did you understand the power of a cheat? Moreover, Linya had yet to make any movements. Perhaps she had already recovered from her eye disease, so she was in a state of shock. If it was really so special that even the system's medicinal pills could not cure it, then it proved that Linya's special bloodline was even more powerful. So, why not? Linya sat cross-legged in the room. After she took the enlightenment pill, she could feel the medicinal efficacy surging up through her dantian, along with her limbs and bones, and into her eyes. The burning sensation assaulted her eyes. Now was the critical moment to repair her eyes. She did not dare to open her eyes and gritted her teeth to support herself. She was afraid that all her previous efforts would be in vain. If she failed this time, she might never be able to see the beautiful world, and she would never be able to know what He Chuan looked like. She absolutely could not let her benefactor down. It was He Chuan who disregarded the rumors and made a woman become the military advisor of Glory City. She made her brother Lin Cheng the marshal, and it was difficult for her to repay the favor he had done to the Lin family. The medicinal effect was still continuing to repair her eyes, and there was a faint sense of coolness. She understood that the medicinal effect had already taken effect, and it began to repair her eye disease. The coolness and burning sensation struck her eyes at the same time, and she felt as if her eyeballs were about to explode. There seemed to be an inexplicable power that was constantly tugging on the nerves in her eyes, preventing her from recovering. Her eyeballs trembled slightly, as if she was struggling against fate, wanting to break through the shackles. The ineffable strength once again wraps the medicinal effect. Has it failed? That's it for this batch of chapters. If you enjoyed the story, stick around for more. Subscribe and join me in exploring even more light novel worlds. Have a favorite novel you'd love to hear? Share your suggestions, and you might see them in the listener's choice section. See you in the next one.